Hello, Scream Demons, and welcome to 2024's first episode of the Screams in the Basement podcast with Sam and Casey.
This is a horror podcast in which two horror fans, still in the year 2024, discuss all things horror, including news, recent watches, horror collectables, and more.
Coming at you from the year 2024, I'm one of your co-hosts. I'm Casey.
And coming at you from still the year 2024.
No, with those glasses, Sam, though, you're coming from the year 1974.
I was about to say, I got new glasses. I fucking love them.
They look good. They look good.
Thanks.
Anyway,
I can actually see.
Let's get screaming, boys.
Let's get screaming.
Yeah. Yeah. So first episode 2024. Hey, it's technically our 1 year anniversary episode as well.
It
1
is,
year
yeah.
of Screams from the Basement.
That's crazy. That's crazy, dude. Like, we've done so much in this year.
Yeah, we've
done
done
so much.
Maybe we can start there. We can slow down a little bit. We got the intro out of the way. We're about to do our top 10 movies of 2023. There's
sure to be a lot of yelling.
There's going to be so much yelling even before we get to our top 10 list on this episode.
Oh yeah.
I'm pumped to do this. This is going to be fun. It's going to be fun to just reflect on the past year. And like we said, this is our first year of the show. First year of the pod. 1 year anniversary. Yep. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that, where we were then, where we are now. Listeners, you can tell us where you think where we were then and where we are now. I think we're about the same in terms of the quality of the show. We're still nonsensical and just talk about whatever the hell we want to watch.
Yeah.
On this show.
But I think that's the charm of it, honestly. Yeah, it's perfect. I love it. I mean, frankly, like we hit the ground running. I mean, we've been putting out at least an episode every 2 weeks. We haven't missed an episode yet. I missed an episode due to a family thing, but beyond that, like, we've been strong.
And say we've been trucking along for the last year. And now, Sam, we're not just at like every 2 weeks you're going to get an episode.
Yeah.
Every single week you're going to get an episode.
Yeah. We've been doing interviews. Like, we've gotten some great interviews too. Like, holy shit. Some of my favorite episodes that we've done have actually been just like our filmmaker interviews that we've been doing.
I will say those are my favorite episodes we've done. I think it's a perfect addition, and I think it leads to so many unexpected conversations. Because you and I, we can do this, just us two, all day long, and it's easy to say. I guess to put it that way, it's easy when it's just you and I because we know each other pretty well. Yeah. I can probably guess 7 out of your top 10. You can probably guess 7 out of my top 10, and our 3 wild cards will be the ones we yell at each other about.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But those interviews, they're so much fun, and I never know what direction they're going to go in. And they go in the best way possible. They go in so many different directions, and I feel like I learn something new every time.
Our most recent one that we just dropped this past Friday with Danny Draven, like, we ended up talking about Western movies with him, like there were whole topics of that conversation that didn't even involve horror, which was really cool. I don't know. Yeah, it's just been fun to branch out and, I don't know, meet some filmmakers, get to know like what makes them tick, what the process of filmmaking is like, because it's different for everybody and it's different for every movie, like no, even with the same filmmaker does not have the same filmmaking experience twice, it's just...
Yeah, I was going to say, just to give a plug right away to our interview with Danny Draven, who did Bad CGI Gator from Full Moon. And again, he'll kind of say it. The movie, it's what you expect. It's Bad CGI Gator from Full Moon. But the conversation we have, I think, is probably just as long as the movie is. It's pretty close.
It's pretty close.
Within a 10-minute margin, we're to the runtime of that movie. Anyway, in that conversation, we talk about like his entire career, which I know a bit about. I've seen quite a bit, and I've read some of his stuff, including the Full Moon book that we talk about.
Right.
But I was not expecting to talk about Stuart Gordon, even though I probably
Yeah.
should have, and put those puzzle pieces together that somehow, knowing us and knowing who he's worked with, being Stuart Gordon, that we'd mention him and bring him up. But Danny
Yep.
just organically brought up the name Stuart Gordon, that he worked with him, and I should have grabbed my recent purchase when we get to Doobie Doing, because I have the movie he was talking about in my
Yeah.
purchases, Deathbed, and yeah, picked that up from last time. Should have grabbed it for this. I was not prepared. Apparently, I don't even have my top 10 list completely ready yet.
That's okay. I have mine completely prepared, and I'm willing to admit that tomorrow my top 10 list will probably be different than the top 10,
Mm-hmm.
but like I solidified it yesterday and I was like, I'm not even looking at this fucking thing until we actually record.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I have about, so Casey, in talking about the year 2023, I
Mm-hmm.
know you and I have had conversations about, I've been very outspoken about how I don't necessarily think this was a great year for horror. And I especially felt this way in the first like 6 months. I felt like not a lot of horror releases were clicking with me, and like there were some cool ones. It's just
Mm-hmm.
none of them spoke to me or like connected with me or just really knocked it out of the park. Um, I would like to formally on this show eat my words. In the last like month and a half, I've been trying to get to all the stuff that I missed. I've been finding new gems that like maybe I just haven't gotten to or didn't know about. And I'm not gonna lie, like this ended up being a very strong year for
Mm-hmm.
horror. Um, just
We've
not in ways that I think I expected.
we've had this conversation internally mostly. I don't think we've
Yeah,
talked about it too much on the show.
yeah,
But internally between you and I and our buddy Blakenstein Ginnathan, that
yeah,
we talked about the year 2023 not being as strong as previous years. Last year's kind of being a notable year. And for
yeah,
me, the thing that stood out this year was there wasn't like a single one or two movies that stood out of like horror fans are rallying around these one or two movies. Where this year it feels like they rallied around a dozen movies at different times
yeah.
throughout the year.
I think
Because
there's
like going
one
in,
movie that will be on both of our top 10 lists that in the last month of this year kind of got that a little bit,
okay,
but not even necessarily with horror fans, but I think with general audiences too.
okay, yeah, and I think there's two movies in particular that will not, I know for a fact, will not be on either of our lists,
Mm-hmm.
that people will have in their top five for sure
Yeah.
of the year.
Oh, yeah. Easily.
Maybe I would maybe throw another third one out there. There's, you can probably think of what they are. We'll
Yeah.
talk about them later on in the show. We'll at
We
least throw them
will.
out to honorable mentions, stuff
At
like
least
that.
at least
But
one of those movies I have a tremendous amount of respect for, even if it didn't click with me. And I'm super happy that it exists and that it had such a bonkers release this year.
mhm.
So we'll talk
Yeah,
about that when we get to
we will talk about Exorcist Believer a little later on in the show.
it. Yeah, I'm so happy that that movie exists.
Yeah, it needed to. All right, Sam, what do we got first before we do our big top 10 movies of 2023? We got our usual stuff going on in this episode. What's up first?
We have some Screaming Mad news, a couple of I don't know. I think both of our Screaming Mad newses are bad news, but
For different reasons.
for different reasons, yes.
Yeah.
Very much for different reasons. Our first news agenda is that we have, so it's a new year, which
Hmm.
means a new crop of public domain things have, well, a new crop of whatever characters, properties have now entered the public domain. One of
Hmm.
them being the Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse short from Disney. And much like Pooh, Blood and Honey, The Mean One, all of these slashers that are capitalizing on that, we have already had two different Mickey Mouse slashers announced. Ew. Gross. I don't like this genre of filmmaking. Like, I don't know. these feel cheap and hollow in the worst way. I don't know. It feels funny coming from me on a podcast that praises stuff like, I mean, I love schlock. We've both talked at length about how much we love Full Moon. Like, my thing is, though, Full Moon is, Full Moon's at least coming up with new concepts, new ideas. And frankly, I don't know. I don't see the merit in taking these children's classic characters and making them into slashers. It doesn't seem like a lot of thought are being put into these other than like, hey, it's the shock value. I know this is a little bit different, but I watched the Banana Splits movie like a few years ago when that came out. And I was like, this isn't good,
Mm-hmm.
And every single one of them, I haven't watched a single one since, but I watch all the trailers and I just can't help but feel like these movies are not for me. I know, however, that you watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Mm-hmm.
I know you didn't necessarily care for that, but I also know that you are planning on watching these. So what do you think about this, Casey?
Yeah, here's the thing. I'm a crazy person. I will watch all of these just for the intrigue factor. Yeah, I watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, which was kind of the one that kickstarted all of these of like, hey, this property entered the public domain. What if it was a slasher? And that's all these are. Or what if instead of masked serial killer, it was Winnie the Pooh? What if instead of Michael Myers, it was a guy wearing a Mickey Mouse Steamboat Willie costume?
Which, like,
what if it was the Grinch, but he's a slasher? And that's pretty much what these are.
Yeah.
Where I think they go wrong, and where Winnie the Pooh went wrong, was that they're so self-serious and lack any form of tongue-in-cheekness to, hey, we're making a Winnie the Pooh slasher movie. You know, the bear that eats honey and has no pants and hangs out with Piglet and Eeyore. Like, what if we just make that a normal slasher where it's just, you can tell it's a guy in a mask, not putting any real efforts into it besides, hey, it's Winnie the Pooh, but a slasher. I watched the trailer for this first one. So that one of these is already made. It's supposedly coming out March of this year. It's the one I have on the screen right now.
Yeah.
It's what's it called?
Is it called Mickey's Mousetrap or something?
Mickey's Mousetrap, a way to get around using the name Mickey Mouse, because that's still
like
up in the air how much you can use of Mickey Mouse. You can use Mickey Mouse in Steamboat Willie.
Yes, you can use the Mickey Mouse,
like Fantasia Mickey Mouse. You can't use that Mickey Mouse.
And you can't just like use generic Mickey Mouse, because the character trademark is still very much alive. I genuinely, I do not like Disney. And honestly, I don't care about these movies, but I also don't want this to happen. I have a feeling Disney is going to try and shut these down. I really do. I think they will try and find loopholes, and they will try and get these shut down.
Yeah, they will. And the Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, there was really, looking at that movie and having watched it, there was nothing they could do about that one, because it didn't look like Disney Winnie the Pooh. It wasn't like exactly like this. Looking at this Mickey Mouse, you can see it on our screen here if you're watching along with us on Facebook or YouTube. I mean, that's Mickey Mouse.
But it is older Mickey Mouse.
It's older Mickey Mouse, and it's also like any mouse. That could be any cartoon mouse. It doesn't necessarily have to be Mickey Mouse that they're doing. When I watch the trailer, though, they do show like clips of Steamboat Willie, and they have like a poster of that's playing at this carnival that the slasher's at. Just kind of milking it for all that it's worth. The other one that was also announced today, as we're recording this, there's one in production already done. This one right here. There's another one that's like gonna take like the Steamboat Willie concept of like Mickey Mouse is driving a boat, and turning that into a slasher, and that sounds a little more fun to me.
That one maybe has a little bit more, like, that one has me a little bit more intrigued, at least. but I'm still not
taking
clamoring to see it.
It's taking the core concept of Steamboat Willie, like that little short from Disney, and turning that into a slasher. Not just, hey, let's give a guy a Mickey Mouse mask and he's the slasher. What? Who cares? They did it in the 80s. They had Donald Duck costumes as in a slasher movie. Like,
yeah.
Like, what are we doing here? I'll watch these, but I'm also with you of like, let's put a little something into them. I'm not saying you need to put money. You need to have Disney money. Disney should be making a
God no.
No, put a little creativity into it. Let's see what a weird tongue-in-cheek Mickey Mouse horror movie is. And it not even saying it needs to be a slasher. Do something strange with it. I don't know. Make a Mickey Mouse ghost movie.
Make it like trippy or something. I don't know.
Make Steamboat Willie the cartoon. Hire animators and recreate that, but as a slasher cartoon.
Yeah, do something interesting. Yeah. Don't just don't plug the character into a generic slasher and call it good.
Yeah.
That's where that's where I'm just kind of like, do something creative with it. You know, like when we talked to Danny Draven about Bad CGI Gator, going back to that, like he was like, you know, at first he was not sure he even wanted to direct it because he's like, what do you do with a movie that's just bad CGI Gator? But he found ways to make it funny. He found ways to make it pop. And like, I think he did a successful job. Like, it's exactly what you expect, but there's also quite a bit of humor and fun to be had with it. And I feel like that's where a lot of these are missing the mark, you know?
Anyway, let's go to a much lighter topic.
We've spent way too much time talking about these.
We'll save it for our eventual Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and Mickey's Mousetrap double feature that we'll do this year.
Yeah. Kayla will have to fill in for me on that episode. Yeah. Okay. Our next Scream and Mad news I'm really peeved about. So, Scream 7 lost its director. Chris Landon will no longer be directing Scream 7. And the first thing I have to say about this is good for him. He saw what a shit show this production was turning into. And he saw the fan backlash against him was ridiculous. I'm like, you realize Chris Landon just got this job. He's not making any of these decisions.
Yeah.
And like, just the way fans treated him, I was like, good, like, get out of there. I know this was a dream job for you, but like, what a nightmare that was.
Did we talk about this yet on the show? Anything related to Scream 7 yet?
I don't even know if we did.
So maybe we need to give just briefly some context, and you can see it on the screen here. The two leads from the previous Scream movies, 5 and 6.
Yep, Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega as Sam and Tara Carpenter,
the main characters of the movie.
Yep. Yeah, they're not coming back.
They're not coming back. Melissa was let go from the project. What was said in press was that Jenna Ortega was filming season 2 of Wednesday during the same time they would film this. I don't buy that for one second at all.
I think Ortega quit.
She left. Yeah, she left the project and just wanted to play a little.
Yeah.
Everyone in the situation probably wanted to play it like, all right, I'm going to quietly step away. I have to shoot this other thing.
Yeah.
Move forward with the project. Chris Landon made the right decision here. I think we will support him in this decision to step aside from Scream 7. I mean, this movie's not going to happen now. It's just not going to.
And it shouldn't. They should just like put this franchise on ice for a little bit and come back to it in a few years with a fresh cast, a fresh story to be told. I'm not going to get into the politics of everything, but I do think that it is bullshit that Barrera got fired for what she said. I think
what also sucks in this entire situation is, I mean, depending on who you believe in the reports out there, I mean, Neve Campbell was going to come back for this one. And that was a whole debacle with the last movie.
With the last one.
Like, they wouldn't pay her. Like, your star of, like, associating most with Scream as an actor is Neve Campbell. And you would not pay her.
the
what you
face
wanted.
most associated with it besides
Yeah.
Ghostface. Like, just pay her what she wants. And apparently they lowballed her again this time around, and she turned them down again. And I'm just like, Spyglass, who is the company making these decisions, get your shit together.
Mm-hmm.
Just come on. I don't understand this.
Yeah.
They had a good thing going. I really loved Scream 6.
We'll talk about it more later.
Yeah, we very well might.
No, we will. We'll give people that. We're gonna talk about it later. God damn
well,
it.
You might.
We'll talk about it when one of us does.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. This really bums me out. It's no shock to anybody who listens to this show that I'm a massive Chris Landon fan. Like, everything he's done. I still haven't seen We Have a Ghost. I really need to check that out. It's one of the ones that I was hoping to get to before this episode. I did not. Otherwise, let's face it, it's a Chris Landon movie. It probably could have been on my top 10 list this year. I was just really excited to see him tackle Scream because I think he almost single-handedly has brought the slasher genre back. I don't know if Scream 5 would even happen had he not done things like Happy Death Day and Freaky, and proved that, like, self-aware slashers with a healthy dose of comedy were viable outputs for studios. And maybe I'm just putting way too much stock in what he's done.
No,
but
even as someone who doesn't like those movies, there's something to be said of those type of modern teen slashers. More the PG-13 type slashers.
Right.
And yeah, there's definitely something to be put in that. And to hear even I'm lukewarm to Chris Landon's work. I like most of them, but
do you like Scout's Guide?
Scout's Guide is my favorite.
Okay, I was about to say, that's kind of my litmus test for people sometimes is like, do you at least like Scout's Guide? Because that movie is goofy fun.
I love his work on Paranormal Activity. Like, the dude just knows horror. He knows modern horror. And to hear that he was connected to Scream 7, I was like, yeah, he's the guy. He's maybe the guy you should have got for 5 to bring it back.
Yeah. If we're being honest.
Yeah. And Scream 5 is fine, whatever. 6 is great. But it sucks that we're not getting another one. I did want to see where, like, we were going with the story, especially if we're going to bring Nev back and maybe close out her chapter completely.
Yeah.
It just sucks that all this happened. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about Scream news again down the road of whatever they're going to do with it. Maybe they'll do a TV show that's not related to the other TV show they did. Who knows what they'll do something with the franchise. I just don't think a movie will be happening anytime soon.
Well, if they do another TV show, here's hoping it's a little bit better than the MTV show.
Yeah, it's not.
I liked the first 2 seasons of it. Okay, like, it was a fun slasher show.
It wasn't CW slasher TV
the third season just completely crapped the bed, and I did not like it at all. But beyond that, yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping that we see more Scream in the future, but I kind of hope it's in the distant future to allow us some time to, I don't know, get the taste of whatever this is out of our mouths before we return to Woodsboro or wherever they set the next one. Space. Yeah. Ghost space. Yeah. All right. So that's Scream and Mad News. Kind of a bummer on both counts. But Casey,
Sam,
what have you been doing lately?
What have I been doing lately? I don't have a whole lot of recent watches. I was on vacation over Christmas to New Year's break. I was in Florida, which was much nicer than here in South Dakota.
Yep.
Came back and it was snow on the ground and 22 degrees outside. And I put me back on the airplane, and I don't like flying.
Yes.
That's how bad it was here, and still is and will be for the next 4 months. Anyway, the good stuff that happened when I came back, just got this in the mail today. First of all, we got to talk about it. got the latest issue of
Oh,
Fangoria.
oh my God!
Features
Is it the subscriber cover with
it is
the?
the
Yeah.
yeah, it's the subscriber cover with the "It's a Wonderful Knife." I'm not sure what's the other cover of this issue.
I'm not sure. Is it Saw X or
I
not?
don't know. Oh, if it was Saw X, I would much rather have that cover.
There was a Fangoria cover with
It
the
could very well be.
leg, the leg trap from Saw X, and just the still image of that made me woozy looking at
Mhm.
it on the cover. And we'll talk about how it made me feel in that sequence much later in this episode.
So yeah, I'm excited to dive into that. Founders Day
Hell
is
yeah.
featured in this issue of
Mm,
Fangoria. Super excited for that. We're working
yeah.
on stuff with that movie. Stay tuned.
Yes, we are. We are.
Stuff I've been doing though, for recent watches. I watched all of
Hold up.
these.
In Florida,
What's up?
you visited a place.
Yeah, so we were in where were we? We were in Cape Canal and Fort Myers, Florida, like in that area.
Hmm.
We spent one day in Fort Myers, like downtown area, and I found, not we. I'm not gonna say we, because this was my one thing. I was like, all right, what are we gonna do in Florida? We didn't really have a plan. We're like, we're gonna go to the beach, we're gonna hang out at the pool. That's about
That's a
it for a
good
week.
plan,
It was a fun
honestly.
it was a fun plan, but I like to get out of the house. I can't just sit for that long. So when we got out of the house, I'm like, what movies were shot in Fort Myers? So I had to look it up, and I looked it up. The first movie that comes up is George Romero's Day of the Dead. And I was like, that's the opening of the movie. Okay, sweet. So I found out
Yeah.
like where they shot it. We found this old uh, theater in Fort Myers, the Edison Theater, where it's posted on our social medias.
Yeah.
You can find the pictures there. Yeah, it was a lot of cool. It's just like it's like an office building now. It's not a theater anymore. It's like
Oh, really?
got law offices in all three floors of the theater. So we
Oh,
walked
man.
inside and people were still working because it was like a Wednesday afternoon at like 2 p.m. or something. And yeah, it was. I mean, it was fun. I got the picture. That's about it. There was nothing else there. I was probably the only person that ever
All
gave
these
a shit.
lawyers were like, all these lawyers are looking at you going like, oh my God.
Tourist, what are you doing? The beach
do
is
you
that way.
do you know George Romero?
Are you his lawyer?
uh
No,
that's cool, man.
it was cool. Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, recent watches.
Then you do what you were doing.
Yeah, recent watches. I'll go two of them back to back right here. I watched in opposite order. I watched A Hunting in Venice and Murder on the Orient Express, which are the two Kenneth Branagh, Agatha Christie whodunits. I know there's a third one. There's the Death on the Nile. Haven't watched that one. I haven't watched that one yet. It's I don't know.
I love Orient Express. Skip Death on the Nile. I have not seen Haunting in Venice. I'm a little jealous that you've seen it.
I'll watch Death on the Nile at some point. Kayla loves these movies. She even said it's probably the weakest of the three.
Oh, she's seen it.
Yeah.
So
it's fine. She had watched Orient Express and Death on the Nile, and then she wanted to watch Haunting in Venice. So I started with that one, the latest in the trilogy, because it's the horror movie one. It's where you investigate ghosts. It's set on the best parts of it. I didn't love it. I thought it was good, not great, because it does turn into a whodunit, and it's a very weak whodunit.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
The best parts though are when it's like plays into like, oh, maybe it's not a whodunit. Maybe there are ghosts in this house. And I love that it plays with that in this movie. It leaves enough for the imagination by the end of the movie of like, yeah, maybe it wasn't just a whodunit.
Cool.
So that's good. It had too much, and I noticed watching Murder on the Orient Express that he was dialed back in that movie, Kenneth Branagh.
Mm.
In Haunting in Venice, every shot is something weird. It's either at a Dutch angle, you either have the fisheye lens on someone. When there's conversations, people are like framed really weird too, and I'm like, what are we doing here? What is going on? Like, it wasn't bad. It was just every time it happened, it was something weird and kind of took me out of the movie a little.
Yeah.
There's too much of it going on. Orient Express, there's like one Dutch angle in that movie.
Yeah, Orient
I'm like,
Express is a
are we
really
sure this is? Yeah.
restrained. Yeah,
I was like, am I sure Kenneth Branagh directed this one? There's only one Dutch angle. That doesn't seem right.
I love his directing style though. It's part of the reason that I love his Thor movie, and honestly would say his Thor movie is probably my favorite of the Thor movies still. Even over Ragnarok. I love the flair and like the Shakespearean dramatic
Yeah.
aspect that he lends to that movie. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Branagh as a director, even if he doesn't always knock it out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Orient Express, not really. I mean, not really a horror movie. It's a murder mystery. Whodunit. I
It's
liked it.
okay.
I liked it. I
Murder
didn't
is
think.
scary.
Yeah, murder is scary. Johnny Depp with a tiny little Vincent Price mustache is even scarier. I liked the movie. I didn't think it was great though. I don't know. There was something missing for it. Maybe I wanted more Kenneth Branagh in that. I don't know. I don't know what it was. I
It's
just don't
almost
feel.
like too cozy.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, and by the end when it reveals like the whodunit part, I'm like,
Yeah. Oh, see, I love that
okay,
part. I
okay,
think the ending of that movie is a gut punch. But yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I liked it. I would watch it again. I'd watch both of them again. They're fun.
Our buddy Ryan Brewer is on the chat with us. He says he felt the same about you, about A Haunting in Venice, I should say, not about you.
Mm-hmm.
And he also brought up See How They Run, which I really love that movie. But I agree, the whodunit aspect. I don't even remember whodunit in that movie, but I remember really liking that movie. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So.
All right, moving away from Kenneth Branagh. The other one I
Oh my
watched.
god. I didn't even realize this was like I knew that you hadn't seen this next one before, but like when I saw this pop up on your letterbox, I got so freaking jazzed, dude.
Finally watched Overlord. I know you've been talking about it for a long time
Oh,
for me to finally watch this movie.
not the
Finally
last
got
time we'll probably be talking about Julius Avery on this podcast
yeah,
either.
I figured. Uh hence one of the reasons I wanted to watch it, because you raved about Pope's Exorcist. Other people have been mixed on that, but people have been raving about Overlord for years
Yeah.
now. I mean, any World War II movie with like Nazi zombies, Nazi experimentation, I'm all for. I think that's such a great subgenre to have in horror, and almost always kind of works. And Overlord is no exception. I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. There's there's like, I don't know, there's so many like reveals that sort of happen with the, maybe not reveals is not the right word, but like character progression with the main villain, where I'm like, okay, we're just in like comic book territory right now.
Oh
Like
yeah.
this isn't, it's like the first half of this movie is a pretty serious World War II movie of like, oh my god, this is intense battle. And then by the end of it, it's like this
It
dude's just like
escalates.
should not be alive. The main Nazi should not be alive. And all of a sudden he's like a beefed up, jacked, like, I'm gonna kill you, bro.
He's like got all these like sores all over him. Like it is
Get his half of his face blown off, and he's
it's
like
like
fine.
it's a splatter movie through and through by the end of it, and I freaking love it. Like, Overlord is just it helps that I have a giant like I have a crush on Wyatt Russell. Let's be honest, like him and his dad can do no wrong.
I liked Wyatt Russell. I didn't love him in this movie. Maybe I needed
Oh
maybe a little
really?
more of that, like maybe a little more of the Kurt Russell charm in there. I don't know. Maybe,
Really?
yeah,
I think he's channeling his dad so much in that
really.
movie. Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love it. But I'm glad you watched it. I'm glad you liked it. Overlord was one of my favorites the year it came out. Like it would have been in my top 5 had I made a list that year.
Last but not least, we did kind of like a New Year's movie watch party, which most of these came from. Kayla picked Murder on the Orient Express. Dakota picked Overlord for his movie that we were going to watch. And then
Had we
mine, that,
seen it before?
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yep. And so what we try to like pick a movie like the other two haven't seen is usually what
Okay.
we do. Orient on Murder on the Orient Express, Dakota had seen, but he was game to rewatch it. Anyway, my pick was Mick Garris's Sleepwalkers. I've been itching to rewatch this movie, especially with his podcast Postmortem ending just last month. And
rest in peace, Postmortem.
Yeah, rest in peace to arguably the greatest horror podcast. Don't worry, Mick, we'll take over for you.
Yeah, we'll take the mantle.
we'll take the mantle. No, Sleepwalkers. It had been a couple years since I had watched this. I was shocked, Sam. I don't know if you've ever seen Sleepwalkers.
I still haven't seen this. I need to check it out. I'm pretty sure, like, I have it on DVD. I need to check it out.
And I know we talked about it on our tier ranking of Stephen King movies. I would still probably leave it where it was on that. I was shocked, though, that Kayla and Dakota actually liked this movie because it is weird. It is the weirdest Stephen King movie. And he makes movies about, like, killer cars and...
Yeah. Like he literally made a book that's all about a teenage boy wanting to screw his car.
Like... Yeah. And, like, a Green Goblin. He made a movie about a Green Goblin a sentient semi that's attacking Emilio Estevez, and this is the weirdest one. Sleepwalkers is incredible. I love this movie. It's so weird. It has so many different twists and turns. Like, you don't know what to expect. Within the first 5 minutes of the movie, there's a mom and son just making out in the kitchen. There's a reveal of, like, who these people are as sleepwalkers and what sleepwalkers are. Sleepwalkers are not immune to cats. Cats are like their mortal enemy. So cats are like the hero of this, which seems to be like a Stephen King motif of cats are the heroes.
Yeah, I kind of love that.
Yeah. This movie's weird. It's bonkers. It's insane. You will love this movie, Sam.
I need to check it out. This will be one that I definitely put on the watch list for this year. I want to finally check this one out because you've talked to me about this even before this year. You've kind of mentioned this one when we talk about Mick Garris movies. So
yeah,
in fact, you might have even brought this up when we were doing a Slashlet, our like Psycho Slashlet episode, talking about Mick's Psycho 4.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I did. Sleepwalker is my favorite Mick Garris movie for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Sam, how about you? That's all I've been doing. What have you been doing over the last 2 weeks?
So I had I've actually watched a lot of movies. I spent most of the holidays under the weather, sick. So I actually watched a ton of movies. Not all of them are horror, so I don't have so much in the way of recent watches, mostly because some of those recent watches will be making an appearance later.
Wait, I shouldn't have brought up a year without a Santa Claus then?
No, probably not. Yeah, most of the ones the horror that I've watched will either be honorable mentions or in my top 10 list.
Yeah, I have a few of those too.
Like I said, I actually had a tough time with my top 10 list this year. We could have done a top 20 episode and I would have been completely comfortable having 20 movies to talk about. So my discards are going to be, I'll go through them quick, obviously, when we're done, but there will be plenty of them. One thing that I always watch over the Christmas season, Black Christmas, the original, still one of the most terrifying movies ever. I adore that movie. It's perfect. And it still scares the shit out of me every time. Does not matter. The ending, like the last 10 minutes, just make my skin crawl.
The call is coming from inside the house.
Yeah. From that moment forward, there is just no peace in that movie. It's just, oh my God, I feel like I am going to have a heart attack. One that won't probably be making my honorable mentions or my top 10, but that I did want to bring up is a new Shudder one called The Sacrifice Game. Have you seen this one?
No, it was I'll have a separate list besides honorable mentions of movies I wanted to watch before this get to. That's probably a whole other top 10 list right there.
Right. Yeah, so here's the thing. The Sacrifice Game did not work for me, but I appreciated what it was going for. It's very much it's set in the 70s. It involves like a satanic cult that's been going around killing people ritualistically. And it's centered around these two girls, their school teacher, and the boarding school caretaker, who are stuck in this boarding school over the holidays. Um, and this group of cult killers visits the school. Beyond that, go into it knowing nothing. There is a twist about halfway through. I think it reveals the twist too early, and then the movie kind of spins its wheels in the second half a little bit. That said, Mena Massoud, the guy who played Aladdin in the live action Aladdin, I have a lot of problems with that movie. He was not one of them, and I've been waiting for him to kind of get another chance to show his chops. He's incredible in this. He's really funny. He's like he's like kind of the head of the group of satanic killers. And especially in the second half of this movie, he's got some really funny bits where we as an audience are caught up to the narrative and the twist, and he is not. And it's like he's in a completely different movie, but it's by design. And that's maybe my favorite part of the Sacrifice Game. I really liked parts of it. And the thing is I still give it like 2.5. It's okay. It's like beautiful set design, all that kind of stuff. The reason I'm bringing it up is because a lot of people really dug this movie. A lot of people have been putting it on their top 10 list. Like I've seen it in a few, and I think it's worth mentioning to check out because your experience might be completely different with mine. I'm curious to see where I'll be if I come back to it in a couple of years. Maybe it'll work for me better then. I don't know. Sometimes movies just don't work at a certain time, and then you go back to them, you're like, oh, this is actually like a lot better than I remember it being.
Those are some of my favorite movies, and the ones that stick with me the most are like those first time watches where you give them like 2.5 stars, and it's like, there's a lot going here. I didn't love it, and then you're like, the more I think about it, there's a lot of stuff in here I like. Still, maybe only 2.5 stars, but
like worth watching every couple of years, right? Yeah. And so I feel like that's kind of what the Sacrifice Game is for me. So I guess it's kind of an honorable mention because I've talked about it so much. But yeah, go check out the Sacrifice Game because it's worth a watch. It's worth a watch. I revisited a movie that terrified me as a kid, and I found that I really enjoyed it. 30 Days of Night, the David Slade movie. Do you not like this one?
No, I like this movie. I haven't seen it in a while. I haven't probably watched it since like high school.
Yeah, I was about to say it's been like middle school, early high school since I saw. I don't remember when it came out exactly, but it was probably like within a year or two after it came out. And I remember it's scaring the crap out of me. And it's still a banger. It's really good. Josh Hartnett's really good in it. The whole thing just like oozes dread and atmosphere. I love the vampires. The ending's a little like weird. I don't know. The final shot's kind of just like, oh, that's what they ended on. Whatever. It's it's David Slade, so it's got style up the wazoo. I really dig it. And then I didn't bring it because you've already shown it off. Maria gifted me with the Empire box set, the Screams of Empire or whatever. What's it called? Empire of Screams. Box set. And I've watched 2 of those. I mean, I've seen Cellar Dweller, but I started going through those. I watched Robot Jocks, which I really liked up until like the last like 15 minutes. They really hose over Athena. Like, I was like, that character's so cool, and then she's literally just sidelined for, lack of a better term, a dick measuring contest.
Exactly
beyond that, yeah, exactly. But like the stop motion effects are awesome. The robot battles are cool. Like the whole world that this movie has is awesome. Really good Stuart Gordon.
It's really a robot Stuart Gordon with a chainsaw dick.
Yes, like, there is a robot with a chainsaw penis, and it is the best thing ever. Like Stuart Gordon knows why people go to the movies. I also watched Dolls, another Stuart Gordon one. That movie rules. I loved Dolls. About halfway through Dolls, I was like, this reminds me of House, but the stuff that I liked about House without the tonal whiplash of the like war PTSD stuff. It's got a little bit of that like fairy tale, like playful vibe to it, but it just maintains that throughout. It might be a little bit slighter than like most Gordon, like it doesn't go like bonkers to the wall, but man, I just really love the vibe of this. I thought the ending was really funny where like I mean, I guess I won't spoil it, but like the ending, how it's just like everything's explained away and they're just kind of like shooed away to whatever. Like I don't know. Dolls was really cool.
I'm trying to remember because like this isn't like a Stuart Gordon like dream project or anything. It was literally like Charlie was like, "Hey, you have time between shooting this and this. Want to shoot Dolls in between?"
Really?
And I want to say I think Robot Jocks was the one he was waiting to shoot.
Really?
I can't remember what he shot right before, but it was literally like, "Want to just come shoot this really quick?"
It's so funny to me.
It's not a Stuart Gordon like. You wouldn't really know it was Stuart Gordon. You can tell it's a Charlie Band production. It's Killer Dolls. Like
yes. But it also has a lot of Stuart Gordon's like wit and humor in it, I feel like. I love I'm forgetting the characters' names, but the little girl and then the guy, Ralph.
Mm-hmm.
Their relationship and their whole like journey together through this is so great. I don't know. I just loved it. It felt like a not modern day, but it felt like an update of like a Grimm's fairy tale type of thing. Very, very like in line with Hansel and Gretel and those types of stories. So yeah, Dolls ruled. So far it's probably my favorite out of that box set, even more than Cellar Dweller, which is, as you know, a favorite of mine.
Yeah.
I really like Cellar Dweller. So yeah. That's what I've been doing, and then I've watched a boatload of movies in prep for this episode, and I also went on a Miyazaki binge, like a Studio Ghibli Hayao Miyazaki binge, which has been great. I think I watched like 6 Studio Ghibli movies this week. I've just really loved doing that. So yeah.
All right. So that's what you've been doing.
That's what I've been doing. And now I suppose it's time to so when I put together my top 10 list, I only did movies.
Yes.
I did not add TV. So can really quickly, I don't know if you have anything outside of like movies that you'd like to highlight from the past year. I have a few things.
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't watch a lot of TV this year, and I can't think of.
There are 2 shows that I want to. So, one, Mike Flanagan's The Fall of the House of Usher on Netflix is incredible. It's another home run in his just like string of home runs doing miniseries for them. This one might be my second favorite behind Midnight Mass. It's like neck and neck with Hill House for me. I really loved it. It updates Poe into the modern era, doesn't lose any of the themes, somehow enriches them. Carla Gugino and Bruce Greenwood are putting in like career best performances in this. And it's incredible knowing that like Bruce Greenwood came in partway through production to replace Frank Langella, because I can't see anybody else in the role of Roderick Usher after seeing him in this series. I loved him. I thought he was tremendous. The whole series is good. It's funnier than most Flanagan stuff. Like there is a real humor and wit to it. Really dug it. Chucky season 3, I've talked about enough on this show. Just another plug to go watch that show because it's incredible. And the second half is going to start, I don't know, probably in like, I think April is what I've heard. So, yeah, looking forward to that. I also read Maeve Fly by C.J. Lead, which I thought was an incredible book. If you like stuff like American Psycho, very much in that vein, really enjoyed it. And then from Bad Hand Books, Eric LaRocca's They Were Here Before Us was maybe my favorite read this year. I absolutely adored that book. It's a little novella, really short, like 90 pages. And like, yeah, just harrowing stuff. Really good. Not for the faint of heart, but definitely worth a read. So those are like these weren't movies, but they would be on my top 10 list type
your
of
favorites
thing.
of 2023. Yeah.
So
yeah. So how this is going to work, we, for our top 10 horror movies, top 10 horror movies of 2023, each of us, both Sam and I, have our own individual top 10 lists. We will go from 10 to 1. In that, Sam, if you have something that's higher, we'll save it to talk about it when you have it higher, or vice versa. If I have something you play at like 10 and it's at my 5, we'll wait to talk about when it's at my 5.
Sounds
just
great.
To kind of streamline this so we're not talking about the same movie twice.
Yeah, twice. It's good. Yeah.
I don't think I have any other criteria. Do you have any other criteria that you can think of? We're including, we're not like some weird Oscars thing where you have to be streaming or in theaters.
Oh, yeah, theater.
None of that.
Yeah.
None of that. We include.
I have a couple of straight to streaming ones.
Yeah.
In mind. So yes, absolutely.
And then at the end, we'll talk about some honorable mentions and throw out quickly the movies we didn't watch that we were wanting to.
Yes.
Cool. So I have these pulled up, Sam. I have Sam number 10, Casey number 10. I will fill in the movie and we'll pop that up on the screen too as we're going along.
So nice.
People can kind of pay attention that way.
So it'll really be etched in stone, and I'll feel horrible about it after I make
I'm not going to type it again. You get one shot.
This is literally I want to emphasize, this is a snapshot in time that has changed for me like so many. That's why I just was like, no, I'm not looking at this until I'm looking at it now going, I need to change it, and I'm refusing to. So this is the snapshot. This is where I'm at right now.
This is where we separate the men from the boys, Sam.
Yep.
This is where we separate from the Exorcist believer from the rest of the pack. All right, so let's kick things off. My list is, if you go on my Letterboxd, I keep a running tally throughout the year and rank every movie I watch.
Mm-hmm.
So if people want to look at that, they can. It's not going to be the exact same because the horror movies you pull out there that might be in a 10 spot aren't going to make this list. I want this to kind of cover what I loved about 2023 in horror.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I got to tick off little boxes throughout there.
I'm kind of with you on that. So there are movies that I absolutely loved that I rated so much higher than some of the movies that are actually on my top 10 list that will not be on my top 10 list, because I'm like, I want this to encapsulate everything I loved this year. So yeah, it's gonna be a weird list. It's gonna be a weird list for sure.
So I'll kick things off. I'll go with my number 10 first. One that, is it the 10th best horror movie of 2023? No. Is it in my top 10 of the year? Absolutely yes. I thought there were going to be more from this company. There's only going to be one. It's going to make my number 10. Okay. It's their best of the year. My number 10 is from Full Moon. It is Ted Nicolau's Subspecies 5. Easily their best movie of the year. I have a couple honorable mentions from them that could have made this. But for me, the movie that stood out for a number of reasons, this 2023 was the year I discovered Subspecies. I knew about it before. I had always seen Radu, what is that vampire? I've never seen that before. Finally, when I watched all of these movies, binged them in succession leading up to this movie, and the night it premiered, I felt like I had my own little private premiere at my house. I watched the night it premiered on the Full Moon app. I watched Ted Nicolau and Charles Band, the director Ted, producer Charlie Band, talk about the making of this movie for 25 minutes beforehand. And it was just the two kind of telling stories. And it wasn't Ted, how did you do this shot? How did you make this? It was how we got to this, because Subspecies 5 is literally decades in the making for them. A movie that's probably cost twice as much, maybe 3 times as much as any other full moon movie within the last 5 to 10 years. And you can tell on screen that this was a passion project for everyone involved in front of the camera, behind the camera, producing all of that. They went back to Romania. This is a prequel to the Subspecies series. It's the origins of Radu the vampire, and we get to see like him as basically a crusader and how he becomes a vampire. You get to see Anders Hove comes back as Radu, and you get to see him without the makeup beforehand and how he transforms into the vampire that you know from all those 90s full moon straight to video movies.
Nice.
What's really interesting about this movie is that they bring back 2 of the cast members from Subspecies 2 and 3, Kevin Spiritus and Denise Duff, who are, I think, just kind of elevate those 2 movies to like, these should have been theatrical and are 2 of the best full moon movies, period. 2 of the best, in my opinion, 2 of the best horror movies in the 90s. In Subspecies 2 and 3. And they play completely different characters in this movie because it is a prequel taking place like hundreds of years before. And it's a really interesting take to bring, like, to have that sort of dedication to your actors of like, okay, all these years have passed. We can't make a direct sequel to the movies we wanted to. We're going to make a prequel, and you guys are going to come back, and you're going to have a whole lot of fun with this. Because this time, Denise Duff basically plays like the one seducing Radu instead of vice versa, which is the case awesome. in Subspecies 2 and 3. Yeah, this movie's incredible. You would not expect like this from Full Moon nowadays, especially. Even there's other ones that I love in here. Like I wanted to have like Jack Attack make my top 10 because I loved it, like from the Demonic Toys series.
I'm a little shocked that Jack Attack isn't in your top 10. And I'm also a little shocked that this one is as low as it is because I know how much you love this series.
I do. I love the series. I love this movie. It just shows how great I thought this year was. But I could not leave this movie off. I feel like it's not just because I love Full Moon and like just love like, I don't know, the spirit of that company. Mm-hmm. It's that I do think like, especially Subspecies, the series, and then this movie, no one talks about it, and it should be talked about outside of the Full Moon sphere of like,
I need to finish this series. Yeah.
Like these movies are on a different level compared to anything else that Full Moon comes out with. Like they're known for like Puppet Master, and those are fun and fine. But like these are on a different level that I think people need to recognize. And that's why I felt like number 10, I needed to have Subspecies 5 on here. Just to get the word out there. People got to watch this movie. It's definitely worth a watch. Might not make your top 10 of the year, but it's going to be one you're like, yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to get to this one. I've seen the first 2. I really liked the first 2. You're right. They have a different feel than most Full Moon movies. They're very gothic and atmospheric and just, yeah. I love the character of Radu. I think he's a great, iconic villain. So my number 10 is a little bit different.
Okay.
My number 10 is The Blackening.
Okay.
A movie that was originally just going to be an honorable mention. And then I rewatched it this past week. And I laughed so hard at this movie that I was like, there's no way I can't put it on my top 10. It's got genuine scares in it. It's got genuine laughs. This cast is just incredible. I found out that there's a sequel coming where most of the cast that survives the movie is coming back. I'm so excited for that. So this is a movie about it's a holiday horror. It's about a group of friends, a group of Black friends that are getting together for Juneteenth, and they're going out to a remote cabin to play games. And when they get there, they find in this Airbnb there's this basement with a board game called The Blackening that has really offensive artwork on it and is like, it's asking trivia questions about the Black experience in America. There's a really funny Friends joke in it that's like, the correct answer is, I'm Black, I don't watch Friends, and things like that. Like, it just, it, I don't know. There's just so much to love about this one. It telegraphs who the bad guy is from the first scene that the bad guy is in.
Okay.
Like, if you are a movie nerd, the first interaction the bad guy has with another person, you'll be like, that's the bad person. That's the one that's behind all of this. But it doesn't take away from anything, because the ride getting to like the reveal and just the character interactions in this movie are hilarious. The thing I love the most about this movie is that it acknowledges how culturally important the O'Reilly's Auto Parts jingle is to us as Americans. I love this movie. I feel like it kind of flew under the radar. And it's one of those summer horror releases that I think did pretty well, but like, I still don't feel like a lot of people, especially at year end, are talking about this one. And I had a blast with it rewatching it. I think it's the funniest horror comedy of this year. And yeah, I absolutely had to put The Blackening on here. So that's my number 10. It bumped off some heavy hitters.
This is one of those movies on my I wanted to watch before making this list. Because I knew you raved about it. I've heard nothing but great things. And I'm kind of shocked it's not a little higher on yours. To be honest, I'm glad it's here. But I'm shocked it didn't make it higher on your list.
It waffled a little bit, if I'm being totally honest. Yeah. Actually, you know what? Oh God, I'm changing mine up.
Oh, you're changing your list? Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm switching out my number 8 pick. I'm looking at this and I'm like, no, can't do it.
Okay.
I can't put my current number 8 higher than The Blackening. I just can't do it. Listen, my replacement for number 8 is going to be just as ridiculous, but
I'm literally typing mine as we're going, so I don't know where mine's going to end up at. I don't know. Right. So I'll go to my number 9 then.
Okay.
It is one we talked about on this show. I think all of these we've talked about on the show already. I'm not going to say that.
I was about to say, yeah.
It is one I said will probably make my top 10. And as I'm sitting here looking at potential candidates for like the lower level of this list, like, yeah, it's one of my favorite movies of the year. It's one I had so much fun with. It's one that no one else is going to put on their top 10 of the year, but I'm going to do it because I loved it, and it's probably one of the movies on this list I would rewatch before some of the others, even higher ones. So my number 9, I'm going to go with Pet Sematary: Bloodlines.
Interesting. Okay.
As I'm typing these out and making my list as we're going along, I wasn't going to have this on the list, but the more I look at it compared to another movie that I know is going to be on your list, because then we'll just get to talk about it then. I feel like this is one where I just had so much fun watching this movie, and like so many people hated it. And I'm like, I don't know what those people were seeing, because I had a ton of fun with this. I mean, it's a prequel to the 2018 remake?
Yeah, 2019, I think. Yeah.
2019 remake. It's better than that movie. I think it's the third best Pet Sematary movie behind the first two, obviously. But it's better than the remake, that's for sure. I don't think there's a bad Pet Sematary movie, though. I think this is one of the kind of low-key great horror series of like, they're all kind of fun and interesting. Even the remake that is just retelling the first movie does it with a spin. This is a prequel to that. I think the performances are really fun. I think there's a ton of fun kills. Maybe the characters aren't fully fleshed out as you might want them to be. I think Judd Crandall is fine, even though he is the main character. But I think there's funny. What's that?
We talked about this on the podcast. I feel like you and I are almost like complete opposites on this one. Where like, I liked Judd Crandall. I didn't necessarily like the movie around him.
Oh, okay.
But I respect this pick because I know how much you like this one.
Yeah, I thought it was a ton of fun. I just love this world, and I think
Yeah.
that's my thing of like if you can keep them like the first Pet Cemetery for me is like that might be top 3 greatest Stephen King
Yeah.
adaptations ever. It's an
It's in my top 5 for sure. Yeah.
incredible 5-star horror movie. There's so much great about that. But if you can make something like Pet Cemetery 2 or Pet Cemetery Bloodlines, where it's like these are probably like 3.5-star movies, but you're doing something interesting and you add and you build upon the world of Pet Cemetery, where you don't just have to rely on the family like from the first movie. You have to rely on them, where you can do these other outside stories. I want more of that. I want more movies set in the Pet Cemetery universe. Have better titles though than Pet Cemetery Bloodlines, because that's a terrible title. But if people are kind of on the fence because they watched other people's reviews on it or heard critics not giving this great reviews, give it a watch. I think Pet Cemetery is a ton of fun. It's definitely worth a watch. Like if you're a crazy person like me that puts Subspecies 5 and Pet Cemetery Bloodlines in your top 10 horror movies 2023, you're going to like this movie. So that's my number 9, Pet Cemetery Bloodlines.
I like it. It's the first 2 picks of this are totally you, dude. Like this is, yeah. This is what I mean. I love this episode because I have a feeling we're going to have wildly different top 10 lists, but they are going to be so us. Like I showed Maria mine before we came in and she's like, that's such an insane list, but I also totally expect that from you.
Yeah.
Like this is a you list. And I'm like, yeah, it is.
It's our personal top 10s. It's not the best of the year. It's our top 10s.
Yeah. And it's like we said, we didn't make it to every movie. So like,
yeah,
it's just favorites, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like our year in review. I love it. My number 9, you might have my number 9 on yours.
Okay.
I'm not sure. My number 9 is Eli Roth Thanksgiving.
Know what's funny? That's my number 8.
Is it?
Yep.
Well, let's just fucking talk about it.
We're going to talk about it right now.
So I mean, we talked about this one on the podcast too. I don't know what else there is to say about this one. It is such a it's Eli Roth's best movie in my opinion. I think it takes what he did in the Grindhouse trailer and it updates it. It makes it more of a 90s 2000s whodunit slasher, which, if we're being honest, I like those better than the 70s Grindhouse slashers anyways. Like that's just more my vibe. So this one really worked for me. I think the only thing I would say, and this isn't a spoiler, I wish Gina Gershon was just in this movie more. I just wish she was in it more.
Okay.
That said, the cast is great. Patrick Dempsey is so fun in this. He's bringing such a good energy to his character as the sheriff, and just has some really fun moments as the movie progresses. The killer reveal is genuinely surprising to me. I didn't know who the killer was until the scene where they reveal the killer, and you're about a half a step ahead and you're like, oh no, and then they reveal it and it's just great. The kills are awesome. Most of them are, transition from the thing. I know we disagree on the trampoline scene. I think he's improved upon it in this one. I think it's scarier and more visceral.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I just think the trailer version's more fun.
It's more fun, maybe. Yeah. The Black Friday riot that opens the movie is insane. Great. There's a person who gets scalped by a cart, and it's just it's cringy. It's insane. Thanksgiving is just there's one other slasher I have higher on my list, but this is for me, this is the most fun slasher of the year, in my opinion. I really love this one. So
I have, so my number 8 is also Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. I had a ton of fun with this. I think it's It's one of the better like whodunits that I've seen in a long time, especially in the slasher
Mm-hmm.
genre. There's another movie I have higher that I think is the best slasher of the movie of the year. But the actual whodunit part is the weakest part of that movie. I think
Mm,
the reveal of this one and the mystery of like who is actually John Carver in this movie is better than a movie I have a little higher. But yeah, like everything you said, and we talked about this already. Like, I loved it. It's a ton of fun. It's one that's stuck around with me a little more as time's gone on. Where I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, finally, I love Thanksgiving. Blood Rage is a fun cheesy 80s slasher, but it feels like now we have a proper Thanksgiving slasher to watch every
Yes.
single year. And
And I
it's
will
something
be.
that
Yeah.
was, and yeah, it was something that was missing, and Eli Roth brought and delivered everything he promised. There's something that I had a problem with that the more I think about it, the more I love it, is that there's so many characters introduced in this movie that just drop off at some point. And
Yeah.
that's by design. I know it's by design, and I kind of find it funny now that there's
Yeah.
so many characters that they set up and are just dropped off to not even be killed or revealed as part of the killers. It's just,
Yeah.
hey, these might be victims or might be the killer. Psych, they
Yeah.
just have nothing to do with the final act
They're
of this
just
movie.
yeah, they're either red herrings for like victims or red herrings for killers, and like half of them just don't have any like
Yeah.
payoff, but that's kind of genius.
Hmm.
It it reminds me even in like the like killer reveal where it's like the reasons why are kind of like, well, how the f- would we know that as an audience? Kind of remind me of like that early 80s, like the 81 My Bloody Valentine. And even the way like Roth creates this town. Like, I mean, I know it's like Plymouth, Massachusetts or whatever, but like it feels lived in the same way that
Hmm.
like Valentine's Bluffs in My Bloody Valentine feels lived in.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
nobody loves Valentine's more than Valentine's Bluffs. Nobody loves Thanksgiving more than Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Yes.
And that's what you need in a holiday slasher. Whatever
Yeah.
town you're set in, they need to love Arbor Day more than anyone else in the Arbor Day slasher. Like
Hell
that's
yeah,
what I'm saying.
exactly. It needs to be like an entire community that is like, we plant trees
Yeah.
and get stabbed.
We need to make that movie.
we
Arbor Day.
should. We should make an
Yeah.
Arbor Day slasher.
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
Yeah. All
So
right.
yeah.
So that's my number 8. Let's go to yours then. Your number 8 then on this.
Okay, my number 8, we're talking about Julius Avery again.
All
My
right.
number 8 is The Pope's Exorcist, a movie that I wasn't even gonna watch this year, dude. I wasn't even gonna watch this. Even after learning that Julius Avery, who directed one of my favorite movies, Overlord, directed this. The trailer did nothing for me. Everybody was like, "Oh, it's Russell Crowe on a Vespa," and I was just like, "I don't care. Like, it looks like a generic exorcism movie.
Hmm.
In some ways, it is.
Yeah.
In other ways, it totally isn't. Like, this is a buddy cop movie that uses the Catholic Church as like the police precinct. Like, Russell Crowe is literally not an exorcist. He's a cop who goes after demons for his boss, the Pope.
The
And
Pope.
like there are moments in the third act where him and his like partner are tossing crucifixes between them, and the sound effects they use literally sound like they're tossing actual guns between them as they're facing all of these like CGI demons popping up out of the ground. Like, the central family that we're introduced to is just dropped halfway through the movie and never brought back up again. And somehow that doesn't bother me at all in this movie. It is just wild from start to finish. Is it a good movie? That's really up for debate. But like, it is one of those movies that I heard people talk about it, and I listened to the first like half of How Did This Get Made's episode on it. And then I stopped it and I was like, no, I need to watch this movie. Like, this sounds insane. And I like literally went out, I spent like $10 on it, just blind bought it. I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna buy this movie. and hope to God that I love it. And I did. And I think I've watched it 3 times in the second half of this year. It is just like a movie that I put on just to put a goofy smile on my face. Russell Crowe is so committed to this stupid thing. He's like, it's almost like he's like Nick Cage, like in a way in this, like where it's just like, he doesn't care that this premise is super ridiculous or that this movie isn't necessarily like, he is bringing Oscar level like commitment to this role. He never drops the weird accent. Like I don't know, man. Like it's wild. And it feels stupid to put it at number 8 on a top 10 list, but also it feels so right. Like I loved this movie. I really did.
I knew this was going to be in your top 10 list. I was one of those people that did not love The Pope's Exorcist, but like I said, there's those 2.5-star movies where you're like, they sit with you a little bit, and you're like, maybe I need to give. Yeah, I gave it 2. I gave it 2.5. It's one of those movies I feel like I'm gonna like more upon rewatch though, because it's one of those movies where the bad stuck out to me more than the good, because the stuff you love is the stuff I love. The campy Russell Crowe is maybe taking this a little too serious.
It's so goofy.
And then you have the family stuff, and that really took me out of it. But I feel like if I watch it again and just focus on like the really goofy action, like it becomes like a Hellboy movie or something by the end of it. It's like very weird. Yeah.
There's a Faith No More needle drop that just had me dying laughing, where they're like talking about they're like, well, who are we gonna send to this family? And all of a sudden you just hear, well, it's a dirty job, but someone's gotta do it. And Russell Crowe's just driving his Vespa out into the countryside. And that was the moment I just think I fell in love with this movie. I looked at Maria, I'm like, what the hell are we watching? I love this.
That's the moment it became in your top 10 of the year.
It is. It really is. Like the Faith No More needle drop, just it cemented it right there. I was like, this is one of my favorite movies of the year. And I mean, like I think I'm even on record on this podcast as going like, I'm probably not gonna watch this movie. And here we are.
Here we are.
It's my number 8. It's my 8th favorite movie this year.
My number 7 then, as we're going along here. I feel like it's going to be higher on yours, but I'll say what it is. It is one I watched literally within the last week to prep for this. It is Saw X.
Higher.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
We'll talk about it then.
We will. We'll talk about it then. God, you're gonna probably like roll your eyes at how much higher it is on mine.
I liked it. From here on out,
God.
From 7 on down, these are like 4-star and above movies for me. Like this is my like these were the ones set in stone while I had a little fun with the bottom 3.
Mm-hmm. Yep. My 7 is one I don't think you've seen. It's pretty underseen. It's a hard watch, but my number 7 is Candyland. This came out like at the start of this year. And it's about a group of truck stop prostitutes who like it's a slasher set at a truck stop revolving around like this core group of prostitutes who are kind of like this little like found family. And a religious cult is in the town nearby. And like you kind of get introduced to both the world of these sex workers and the cult who are at this truck stop kind of like trying to, they're trying to save people. But it's very clear that it's like not just like, oh, these are people who go to church. Like these are people who are in like a legitimate cult. And one of the girls from this cult pretty much gets she gets exiled from it. And these truck stop sex workers, like they take her in, and then people start dying like brutally and in like these kind of sacrificial, like kind of ritualistic, their bodies are like being posed and things like that. What's cool about this is it reveals the killer pretty freaking early, but it does not deter from the movie. It actually just kind of creates this sense of unease because you are ahead of where all of these characters are. And like, I don't really want to say any more beyond that, but this has one of the most gut-wrenching endings of any movie that I've seen this year. There is also a brutal assault scene halfway through, that, like, if you're easily triggered by that kind of thing, this is probably not the movie for you. But the thing is like, this movie sounds sleazy and like very like it could be like a very misogynistic, gross, exploitative type of movie. And it is like exploitation, but it has so much empathy for its core characters and like the relationships that they have and the dangers that they face just trying to work in their profession. And I don't know. I didn't see another movie this year like it. I watched it about a month ago and I haven't stopped thinking about it. And it's just one of those movies that it's probably the least fun movie on my list. But I had to highlight it. I think it's one of the I think it's the best slasher this year. The kills aren't like super like invented. Like, you're not going into this being like, oh wow, like someone got, like, it's not Thanksgiving. No one gets turned into a human turkey or anything like that. Like, they're all pretty much just like, you get stabbed and you die. But man, I don't know. The story it told and the inevitable like conclusion of it is just it's wild stuff. I really dug it. The director John Swab apparently is known for pretty like um graphic and like hard to watch type of horror movies like this. Like, I've heard dark and gritty um thrown around his name quite a bit. I haven't seen anything else from this guy, but I might end up going back and watching some of the other stuff, just because I really liked Candyland a lot. If you're a fan of like 70s slashers and like that exploitation grindhouse type of thing, this is a movie that you'll probably dig. So,
Yeah, this is another one on my wanted to watch before the end of the year. I know you raved about it last time, I think, we
yeah,
did the show. And then Elric Kane from Colors of the Dark had this on his top 10 of the year as
he's
well.
actually, I think he's the reason I ended up hitting play because I was like, oh wow, he has it on his top 10. Like, it had been in my watch list for, I mean, pretty much the whole year ever since I found out about it. I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Um, and I'm glad that I ended up watching it before the end of the year because it kind of knocked my socks off, man. Like, it was something else. It was something else. Also, just want to shout out real quick Owen Campbell, who is RJ, the cinematographer guy from X, is in this as a bisexual, one of like a prostitute, and God, he's incredible in this. I hope he continues to do work in the horror genre. Kind of weird that like two of my that, like, he's done two kind of 70s ish grindhousey slashers in a row that both ended up making my top 10 list.
Mm.
But yeah, really dug it. Really dug Candyland. So, not going to be for everybody though.
All right, my number six. Then I don't think you've watched this yet. I've raved about it on the show. It's one of my favorites of the year. I was hoping it was going to make my top five. It just didn't. Moving things around, it didn't. But this is damn close to making my top five. It's my number six. It's Cobweb.
Yeah. God, I wanted to see this one before
This
this
is my
episode so bad.
this might be my biggest surprise of the year because I went in like I had heard about it like very early on in the year, and I think it ended up on Hulu, I think is where it's at.
Yes.
Um, and I heard good things about it and didn't know anything about it, didn't know what to expect. Just saw the poster. That's all I knew about it, and then went into the movie blind. The movie stars Lizzie Kaplan, who I most know from like tons of comedies. Like
Yeah.
she's in a bunch of like Seth Rogen movies. Anthony Starr, who's in The
The
Boys.
Boys.
He's Cody Rhodes in that. And I had never heard of this director before. I think this might be his first feature, if I'm not mistaken. It is, as I'm looking it up here. Samuel Bowden, directorial debut, featured debut on this movie. What I love about Cobweb is that going into this movie, especially now 2023, we'll talk about it maybe a little bit at the end after we do our top 10, like what was maybe an overarching theme of the year or what really stood out to us in terms of where horror is right now. I think one thing that stood out to me is like we're getting more and more trauma horror. We're dealing with, this is my family, something's not right with them. This is my familial history, and there's something off about it. And this movie does that. Of these parents, played by Lizzie Kaplan and Anthony Starr, are awful. From the beginning, you're like, something's off about you two. Anthony Starr, you're the scariest person in this movie, and there's a monster in it, and you're just a blonde-haired dad. Lizzie Kaplan is just as scary. They're awful parents, and you feel so bad for their young son, who like succeeds in school. He has a like very friendly relationship with his teacher of like they bond together because he doesn't have any friends, and she kind of knows like, hey, things are probably not right at home with him. What we find out is there is some family history of something going on in this house. And throughout the movie, the young boy starts to hear things in his wall. And it's like telling him to get out and telling the boy to help her get out. And it's like, what's going on? Is like the house haunted? Is there someone living in the wall? The reveal of what it is, and I'm not going to say what it is because I do want people to watch it because I still think it's a relatively under the radar movie. When that reveal happens, and this movie kind of almost has a tonal shift in the third act of this movie, I was 100% on board of like, we go away from like family trauma horror to like a monster movie in the final act. I'm like, yes, that's nice. Where I want these movies to go more often. We don't need to have like dark, depressing, drab ending. It's like, we're horror. Let's have fun with it sometimes. And this movie has a ton of fun. It's still scary, but it's having a ton of fun with the concept. I love people in the wall horror movies. I think they're a great concept. I think they almost always work. It's always terrifying in some way, shape, or form, while also being a little tongue-in-cheek. Like, I think there's just a cheeky aspect of like something in the wall because it's like maybe too outlandish to think of like, oh, there's something living there. But when it happens, it's like, no, that's terrifying. While also being a little funny because like, why is someone just hanging out in my wall?
Yeah. I think William Brent Bell has one of the best
the boy
living in the walls.
Yeah. And that one's like sort of scary, but like more goofy than scary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cobweb Rules. Go check it out. Go watch it. It is also a Halloween movie. It is set around Halloween. It's not like bright orange fall vibes. It's more of like it's getting gross outside. Summer's over. Yeah. We're almost to winter. There's like rotting pumpkins in the backyard.
Nice.
Yeah. Perfect vibe for the Halloween season.
God, this will be one like that probably this week I will put on just because this conversation will have it fresh in my mind. And it's one that I really wanted to check out before this. I haven't even seen a trailer for this. The only thing I've seen is the picture of Lizzie Kaplan with like the tray of like treats or something and that big ass smile on her face. And I'm just like, yeah, that's unnerving as hell.
Yep.
So.
All right, Sam, what do you got at your 6?
So my number 6 is going to be our first, like maybe this is going to be the first one I put on my list that you're like, seriously.
Okay.
It's The Last Voyage of the Demeter. So this is the last movie that I watched in 2023. I literally watched this on New Year's Eve before I fell asleep at about 11 o'clock like I do every New Year's Eve because staying up till midnight is just not, it's not my thing, man. I don't stay up that late. Screw that. So I watched The Last Voyage of the Demeter, knowing full well I was probably going to like it more than you did. Just because boat, Dracula, I like vampire stuff. I'm terrified of the ocean. Being stuck on a boat in the middle of the ocean in a storm with a vampire just sounds terrifying to me. Um, I love Andre Overdahl's Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Mm-hmm.
That is another one of my favorites. I still have not seen The Autopsy of Jane Doe. That is on the watch list, though.
It's his best by far.
Yeah,
Incredible.
I know you have sung the praises of that one so much, and the trailer freaks me out. So I can't imagine what the movie's gonna do to me. Um, I am a sucker for gothic horror. I am a sucker for David Desmalchin. And I'm just in general a sucker for vampire movies. I really loved this. I thought it was very tonally like it's just taken one chapter from the Book of Dracula, it's fleshed it out into a feature film. It's about the crew of the Demeter. They're shipping these crates from Romania to England. Obviously, Dracula's in one of the crates and he starts killing people off. That's the plot of the movie. And I get like I understand where people are like, well, that's just what it is. Like, it doesn't do anything besides that. But to me, like, it didn't need to do anything besides that. Like, that's what I put this movie on for. And I think having Dracula be a visceral Nosferatu like creature is incredible. I think some of the gory deaths are like awesome. This movie does not shy away from messing up children. And I don't mean killing children. I mean like brutally like messing them up. There are a couple of like holy shit moments in this one that really like rocked my world. Um, and I kind of loved the tease at the end, as cheesy as it was. I know we're probably not going to get because I was one of the dumb people that did not see this in theaters. So we're probably not going to get the sequel that it teases, but I would so watch the sequel that it teases. I really dug this. I thought Des Malchin just did an incredible job. I loved him as the first mate who considers the ship his home. At the end of the movie, where they're like considering sinking the boat just to save everybody in London, and he's just like, "No, this is my home. Like after this voyage, I'm gonna be captain." Like, and just that like internal conflict with him. I loved that stuff. Um, so yeah, I don't know. This felt tonally. If you would have put this in black and white, I would have maybe believed that it was well, maybe not with the gore and the digital effects, but like this felt very tonally in line with the classic Universal monster movies to me. And I had a blast with it. So it is my number 6 of the year. And I feel like I'm in the minority on this one. I feel like more people are kind of more in line with what you're thinking, but this one just worked for me. Really loved it. I think it's the better Dracula movie this year by a country mile, and that's going to piss off a lot of people. But
I don't agree with that.
Here's the thing.
They both have problems, though.
Yes, they do.
Just enjoyed the other one a lot more.
What I enjoyed about this one was it didn't try to shoehorn in a crappy CSI Miami B plot.
I would have been all right with a shoehorned in CSI Miami B plot because this movie needed some sort of plot.
I disagree, but fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough.
Didn't work for me. Did not work for me. All right, so that was your number 6. My number 6. I don't know if you've watched this one yet. Oh, my number 5. Sorry. Yeah. I don't know if you've watched this yet. My number 5 is one that I watched a couple months ago, and it's just really stuck with me. Kayla is going to hate me for this because she did not like this movie. But my number 5 is Brandon Cronenberg's Infinity Pool.
Yeah, this was another one I kind of wanted to get to, but I was not able to.
This one has not. I haven't stopped thinking about this movie since watching it. I talked about it on that episode on how much I loved it, and I still love it all these months later. It's one of the weirdest movies of the year. I love that it took these big swings. I love that we have another Cronenberg that he's not doing David. He's not doing David Cronenberg. He's not trying to be Cronenberg's son. But you can tell he's Cronenberg's son while doing something very, very different from his dad.
Yeah.
This movie again, like I think we talked about. We already mentioned X with Mia Goth. Her in this movie, if we were gonna do like some horror awards, she'd be my like best actress of the year. She is so weird and
Nice.
unhinged in this movie and insane. She is on another level in this movie, and it makes you like you can't take your eyes off this movie because you don't know what her character is going to do next. It's great. It's also like I don't know this weird. So like the plot of the movie is that this husband and wife they're on vacation in I believe they're in Mexico or overseas. Anyway, they're on this resort and they meet Mia Goth and her husband and Mia Goth and her husband convince them to go off resort. They know of this cool place that no one else knows about. It's beautiful. You can take pictures. You can come hang out for the day. And so they decide, for some reason, to believe these people they have just met. And they go off the resort. And on their way back, they run. It's like middle of the night. They're drunk. They run over a local and kill him.
Oof.
And so Mia Goth and her husband we find out that this isn't their first time running into trouble in this country and that they know a way out of it. And the way out of it is you clone yourself and your clone gets murdered and killed for the crime that you committed. Well, you get to stay there as yourself as long as you have enough money. And the reveals as the movie goes on of like, do I even know myself anymore? Am I myself anymore? Am I a clone? Did they kill me? Like, did they kill the real me? And am I the clone? Or somewhere along the line, was I a clone or was I the real person? And then finally they made the switch of, no, they killed the real person and now I'm the clone. It's just kind of a weird mind trip of a movie. And you're always guessing what's going to happen next. This movie didn't work for everyone, and I understand why it didn't work for everyone. But for me, there was always constant intrigue of what's going to happen next, and just kind of this weird, unhinged insanity throughout it that had me on the edge of my seat watching it. Infinity Pool, one of my favorites of the year, one of the most interesting movies and original movies of the year.
So I need to see this and Possessor because both of these movies sound incredible to me. Like I hear the premise of both of them and I'm just like, God, that sounds awesome. Like I need to see it. I just need to hit play on them. Funny story is I remember the day you watched this because we also went and saw Insidious the Red Door.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I got in the car and you, Kayla, and Dakota were like dead quiet and there was just a vibe. And I was like, the fuck is like I can't even remember. I think I had gotten off of watching like 3 hours straight of like Ed and Eddie or something like that. And I came in and I'm like, hey everybody, duh, Ed voice. And you guys are like I was like, who died?
Yeah, I remember that now. There was definitely a vibe in that car. So that's the vibe it's going to leave you with. Infinity Pool.
That's okay. If I'm in the right mood, I love movies like that. Yeah. So, weirdly enough, my number 5, similar in the way that it leaves you a little bit empty. My number 5, it doesn't sound like it would. My number 5 is Unicorn Wars. So this doesn't even sound like a horror movie.
No,
it is. It's 100% a horror movie.
So I'll be honest, I had never heard of it, and I've never heard of anyone else talking about this movie besides you.
Okay, so I found this movie through I think it was like a Letterboxd review earlier this year, like in January. And I was just like, when this comes out, I'm going to get it. And it came out on my birthday, like on VOD. And I didn't get it right away. I think I picked it up like a month later. It was on one of the Vudu like $5 sales. And it is a Spanish animated film. It's like a fantasy war movie where you have unicorns who live in the enchanted forest and you have teddy bears who have created this culture of like The unicorns forced us out of the forest. It's our birthright. Like, we are going to wage a holy war and take this back. And it is a movie that starts off like the opening scene is very like horror. It follows like a young unicorn, and she goes into this like giant dilapidated mansion in the middle of the forest. And there are all these like creepy like simians, these apes, like wandering around this. And she hears her mother, or what she thinks is her mom, and it turns out to be this like giant black like goo monster. And she runs out. And it's like a really cool horror opening, like really neat animation. And then it just plops you into Care Bear Army Boot Camp. Which is as funny as it sounds. Like, it's just like, what? And they're teddy bear, like these cute little teddy bears that are like chanting like good unicorn, dead unicorn and stuff. And they're going through all the boot, and like you go to this barracks scene, and there are bears like arguing about who's cuter and like all this stuff. And it starts to focus on these two brothers, Bluey and Tubby.
Bluey.
Very different Bluey. This Bluey, from the get-go, is just like a mean son of a bitch. Like, you're just like, wow, you're an ass to your brother. You're an ass to everyone around you. You're really self-centered, like all this stuff. And it starts to like flash back to like these two bears' childhood. And you find out that Bluey has a lot of mommy issues. And throughout this movie, like they get trained, they go into the enchanted forest. Things do not go well. And throughout the course of this movie, you watch as Tubby begins to start to understand the unicorns and realize that like this war doesn't necessarily need to happen. And you see Bluey go in the complete opposite direction. So the first half hour is kind of funny and cute, and you're like, God, where is this going? And then the next hour of it is a harrowing war story. And I mean like harrowing. Like, it makes Saving Private Ryan look like, it makes Saving Private Ryan look like My Little Pony, literally. And it's insane, dude. Like, I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything, but the ending is very much it's anti-human, it's anti-war, it's anti-religion. Like, it's just like, no, this is what's going to destroy our world. And when all the pieces come together and the big reveal happens, the last like 3 minutes of this movie are the most heartbreaking thing you will ever watch. And I just was not prepared for this movie. Absolutely loved it. There was a point where this was maybe like my number 3 or my number 2. It was cool. I've never seen anything like it. This guy has another one that he did based on a graphic novel he wrote called like Bird Boy, The Forgotten Children from a few years ago that I really want to check out now. And he has a new one coming out this year. And if it's at all even remotely horror, it might be on my top 10 list this time next year because Unicorn Wars ruled. Really highly recommend it.
Yeah, like I said, I had never heard of this until I saw you post about it on Letterboxd, your review. It reminds me of Happy Tree Friends, like maybe a more serious Happy Tree Friends.
It's literally like if Happy Tree Friends did a straight-faced Saving Private Ryan. Like, it's insane, dude. Oh my God. I don't know. It's not going to be for everybody. Like, there are definitely people, like, I look at Letterboxd reviews and people are either like, this was cool, or people are like, well, this was dumb. And I'm just like, I don't know. I just found it really, fascinating and really heartbreaking. And it wrapped me up in a lot of emotions. It's on my looking at my top 10 list, it's the most unique movie on here. And I absolutely loved it. So.
All All right, Unicorn Wars, number 5. All right, my number 4. I didn't even put the connection together between my 5 and 4 until you literally brought up the story of us going to watch this movie. My number 4 is Insidious: The
Yes.
Red Door. Patrick Wilson's directorial contribution to the Insidious franchise. He's back after almost a decade.
Strong debut too.
Yes, one of my favorites of the series now. I loved this movie, and again, it is emotionally maybe the one that stuck out the most to me in terms of like sticking with me. There's another one that I think is on another level for emotions in terms of horror movies this year, but Insidious: The Red Door has you on an emotional level I was not expecting, because I've made it no stranger. I love this franchise. It's one of my favorite horror franchises. We did a whole episode on it. And to see kind of like the culmination of the entire series now into this one and be wrapped up in the Lambert family drama of like, hey, this is what happened to us 10 years ago. What if those things from our past started to haunt us now in our present? We have to figure out the puzzle pieces of why this is happening. And the thing that stands out to me the most, and it's not a spoiler for anything in the movie, is how they work in like not just the ghosts part of Insidious, but it's like, what if you were one of those kids and you saw your dad try to strangle your mom, chase you down into the basement, break down barricades, try to kill you or your brother, and now all these years you have that flooding back towards your memory of like, oh no, that happened. That was real. That was not in my dream.
Yeah.
How would you process that? And I love how this movie deals with it, because it's not like, it's also not in your face because it's an Insidious movie. We don't have to like go too much into like, I don't know, family drama. We still got to be spooky wooky because we're Insidious.
And there are some great scare sequences.
There are some great scare sequences in this movie. It has great use of the college setting of dorms, especially. I love how it explores the further that was teased in the first movie. Because the first movie, it's teased that, what's the son's name? I'm trying to remember the son's name now. Ty Simpkins' character, Dalton.
Yeah. Yes.
In the first movie, it's teased that Dalton, like, he likes to go into the further because he can fly and do whatever he wants. Like, it's a fun thing for him to do because he doesn't realize the danger that's involved. And we get that here because he's realizing again now as an adult, off on his own in college, hey, he can do the same. He can go wander and like go to different dorms, but almost immediately it's like, no, there's something dangerous going on here and I need to stay in my body. This movie's incredible. I love this movie. I think it's, again, like obviously top 5 of the year for me. It's emotionally resonant. Great performances. Patrick Wilson's incredible in this movie. Ty Simpkins is great too. Rose Byrne, like, surprisingly doesn't have a lot to do, but when she's there is perfect. And I think it's perfect for this movie. And if we do get a sequel, I do want to see more of her and the other brother explored a little bit more on how they're dealing with all of this. This is, I think it was a perfect continuation to the series, and maybe it's not really a legacy sequel because it's too early to be that.
Yeah. It's honestly just a sequel. Like,
but it's a sequel like 10 years after. Like, it's weird to see Ty Simpkins as now the lead as an adult. And I think this is a perfect way for a series to do their characters right. It sticks with the characters, puts them on a new journey, while also keeping them emotionally resonant from how you as the audience experience them for the first time.
Yeah. This one's not on my top 10, but like, just hearing you talk about it, like, gave me chills again. I love this one. When we did our Insidious episode, like, I think I said it on that show, like, this is my favorite Insidious movie. I loved this one, and for exactly the reasons you stated. Like, it's so emotionally resonant. It struck a chord. That ghost song with Patrick Wilson at the end's a banger. I don't care.
That like, ghost track has been on my playlist. It might be my most played song of the year.
Yeah. And I just, I loved everything about the MRI sequence. Like, still gets me. Like I think about that and I'm just like, oh, like yeah, Insidious the Red Door, like it waffled in my top 10 to be honest with you. It was yeah, it's one of my favorite theater experiences this year too. Like I had a blast like watching that with
Mm-hmm.
you guys and yeah, Insidious the Red Door rules. I'm really glad it made your list. I kind of figured it would, which is why I was like I'm okay not putting it on mine. So, cuz I figured we'd get ample time to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
my number 4. I have a feeling, knowing what we got left, I don't know if
You
it's gonna.
probably know my top 4. You probably know every single one
I
of them.
I know, but I don't know what order they're in.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see where your top 4 is going to go. I think. Anyway, go ahead. What's
Okay.
your number 4?
My number 4 is Evil Dead Rise.
That's what I thought.
Is it higher for you or
It's higher. It's higher. Yeah, higher on mine.
okay? Yep.
So that was
We'll
your
talk
number
about
4,
it then.
Evil Dead Rise.
Yep.
We'll talk about it then. My number 3, Scream 6. I teased that we were going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it now.
Yep.
Color me shocked that Scream 6 is in my top 3 of the year. I was not the biggest fan of Scream 5. I think it's the weakest of the series. And maybe
I
that's why
agree.
I love Scream 6 so much, is that it's almost a complete 180 from that movie of
Yep.
we're doing something new, interesting, different. We're focusing on our new characters and developing our new characters, and we don't have to just focus on the past. Even though this entire movie is like has a shrine to all the other Scream movies in the third act of it, but it
But
doesn't
it's kind of
rely on
making fun of that, you know,
yeah,
in a sense. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And the thing it's missing. Okay, so I think it's the best slasher of the year.
That's fair.
But in terms of like the meta aspect, I think that's the biggest thing missing. But it's not a deterrence to this movie. I
Mm-hmm.
still think because it's a great slasher, it's still a great Scream movie. Do we have, like I said, I think the better whodunit is Thanksgiving, but the
Mm-hmm.
whodunit here, and the more I think about it, I'm like, that's goofy and weird and kind of perfect for the Scream franchise because
Yeah.
all of them are in their own way goofy and weird. The second movie ends with Billy Loomis's mother being one of the killers with a guy she found like online
A
and like
college
hired
kid she found
a
online.
college kid. Yeah.
She's like
Uh,
paying for his college just so they can go on a murder spree together.
go on a murder spree and to go after one person and that they don't get
Yeah.
and try to recreate the murders from her son that her son and his lover did.
Yeah, this series is wild. I
It's
really
wild,
love
it's
Scream
crazy. Yeah.
6. Yeah.
It has one of my favorite horror sequences of the year, and it's the apartment scene with the
Mm,
the
the
ladder.
ladder. Oh,
It's incredible. I loved it so much. It is one that stuck out with me the most, especially in terms of slashers. It's my favorite like slasher sequence of the year. It's so good. It's so tense. It's like that's creative. It's using again the New York City set piece perfectly. What I also love is that they use the what we think happens in the trailer and how it actually plays out in the movie in terms of the subway sequence
yep.
perfectly because it's
Yep.
like, oh no, this isn't what's supposed to happen. That's not what I saw in the trailer.
Yep.
They're all supposed to be
The way they
together.
cut
But
that
it's
trailer was perfect.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
The final act taking place in a movie theater that's a shrine to all the screams and stabs is kind of just like a horror movie lover's dream final act. And it's exactly what it's going for. The characters are much better in this. The core 4, I think we talked about it when we did the episode where I'm like, I like
Yep.
the core 4 now. I want to see more of them. We're not going to, but at least we got this one. We got this one.
So this one barely like this one is like in my 11-12 spot. And I think part of it is like the recent news, and this is a dumb reason, but the recent news soured me a little bit, if I'm being honest. I do love this movie. I think it's incredible. Like you said, there are a couple incredible set pieces. The characters are great. There were just other slashers that I liked a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, you know what? I had an inkling that it would maybe be on yours. And so I was like, I'm okay leaving it off mine just because I really wanted to talk about Thanksgiving and Candyland. And I was like, 3 slashers on my list is just like, I love slashers. I could probably make a top 10 list this year of like all slashers because there were so many like ones that I love that came out this year. This one just didn't quite make it. So, but yeah, Scream 6 rules, dude. I'm glad it's this high on your list.
Yeah, I loved
That's
it.
awesome.
I can't wait to watch it again.
Yeah, it's a banger.
All right, Sam, what is your number 3 then?
My number 3 we'll talk about later because my number 3 is Godzilla -1.
Okay. Okay.
And you're now finding out what my number 1 and 2 are, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out the order because I knew your top 4. I'm just trying to figure out where they all land. My number 2 was your number 4, Evil Dead.
Yes.
This for the longest time was my favorite of the year.
Yep.
It was one where immediately I watched it and I'm like, that's going to be hard to beat of my favorites because Evil Dead is my franchise. I love it so much. There is nothing but 4-star bangers in this franchise, including the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV series, and this is no exception. This movie is incredible. And you talk about violence towards children.
Oh, Stephanie.
Last Voyage of the Demeter. Stephanie might be, if we had, again, our own horror awards, we would nominate Stephanie as best supporting actress.
Yep, 100%. You talk about like your favorite horror set pieces, like so many of my favorite horror set pieces are from this movie, and Stephanie's one of them.
Yeah, again, you talk about great settings for horror movies this year. I think we had quite a few great settings for horror movies, even just in talking about our slashers of Thanksgiving had the town of Plymouth. Yep. Scream had New York City as its backdrop. This one has that high-rise apartment that they're stuck in. Yep. It's incredible. I loved it. Could they have used it more? Maybe, but maybe the fact that they didn't use it more makes it more effective because we're stuck basically in that apartment the entire time shit's going down for the Evil Dead Rise. The performances are incredible, like create almost instantly iconic Evil Dead characters, and for a franchise that is so synonymous with like characters that horror fans are like, they're my guy, they're my gal.
Yeah.
To have 2 of them in this movie right away with Lily Sullivan and Alyssa Sutherland of like, we have one of the great, maybe the best Deadite ever.
Oh, easily. You talking about like Mia Goth as your like, that's my horror performance of the year. Alyssa Sutherland is my. Now, I haven't seen Infinity Pool, but like Alyssa Sutherland of what I've seen, hands down, my favorite performance this year.
Yeah.
Oh.
And best final girl of the year, Lily Sullivan is the best. She's incredible in this movie. There's so much to love about this movie, and I don't get why people don't love this. And it makes me wonder, like, do you guys just not like Evil Dead? Because that's exactly what this movie is. Is it a little more self-serious than the Bruce Campbell ones? Yes. Is it more in line with the 2013 Evil Dead? Yes.
So I've heard people say that.
But it's also very tongue-in-cheek. Like,
yeah.
It just doesn't have Bruce Campbell. That's the only thing that I think throws that of like, it's not a slapstick goofball horror comedy like.
Oh, I disagree. When she's eating a guy's eyes straight out of the socket, like it's hilarious.
Oh, it is, but not in the same way that Bruce Campbell dropping one-liners is hilarious, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a very different type of comedy.
I find this one like. This might be my favorite one. This honestly, like, and that's saying something because 1 and 2 are 5-star bangers for me. Like, I love both of those. And I love Army of Darkness. I have come around a lot on the 2013 one. When we did our episode on it, I found it a lot better than what I remembered it being. But this one, I don't know. Like, start to finish, it grabs me, and I love the aesthetic of it. I love the framing device with the cat, even if it doesn't really make sense in the grand context of the movie. The framing device to me is so awesome. Um, the like monster reveal at the end of it is just like
gives us something we have not seen in the Evil Dead franchise that fits perfectly in the Evil Dead franchise.
And the peephole sequence. Oh my god, the little like fisheye lens peephole sequence. I like that might be my favorite horror scene of the year, if I'm being totally honest. I love that scene. As I talk about this, I am genuinely shocked that I have it at number 4. Like it, but these top 4 are so interchangeable. Like, if I'm being honest, they're all like movies that I loved so much that it's just like my top 4 ranking is arbitrary.
Yeah, they're all any day of the week could be number 1.
Yep, exactly.
All right, so that's my number 2. Then your number 4, Evil.
All right,
nice. Top 2 for you. What do you got, Sam?
My number 2 is one that you had on your list a little bit lower. My number 2 is Saw X.
Oh.
So you know what my number 1 is.
I know what your number 1 is. I was not expecting it to be your number 1. Okay.
Yep, it's my number 1. I can't.
I should have
known. Okay, so Saw X, like, I don't even know if people who are not our age understand how seminal the Saw franchise was. Like, when I was growing up, watching a Saw movie was like a rite of passage. Like, that was the movie that, like, in the hallways of middle school, we were all whispering, like, did you see the new Saw or what? You know, like, it was one of those that was just, like, you had to watch the new Saw movie. And I maybe fell out of love with this series for a while, mostly after 3. And it's because at the end of 3, they kill John Kramer, they kill Amanda Young, and those were like the 2 characters that I just loved. Like, Amanda has always been my favorite Jigsaw apprentice. And to me, that like original Saw trilogy is just like sacred. Like, I have so many memories of watching those with friends in dark basements, like just groaning and squirming through all these traps, fist pumping at the reveals at the end. And I was I remember the first time watching Saw 3 being just genuinely shocked that they killed not just Jigsaw, but they killed Amanda too. And I was like, no, you can't kill both of them. Why the hell would I watch the next movie now? And of course I did. And I just didn't like those ones as much. 6 is really good. But I feel like it's just kind of been in this franchise has been in a limbo for a while. This movie brought me right back into those friends' basements. I was fist pumping through the second half of this movie the entire time. Like, this is a movie that's centered completely around John Kramer and Amanda Young. Mostly John Kramer. Like, Tobin Bell is the lead character in this. He's the protagonist of Saw X. He's not the antagonist. He is the protagonist. And they pull a Don't Breathe 2 by pitting him up against someone who is so freaking despicable that it's like, of course you're going to root for John Kramer, even though he's the serial murderer that he is. I think Shawnee Smith is so funny in this. The first time, like, one of the victims threatens her and is like, I'm going to kill you when I get out of this. She's like, that's a good plan. You're going to want to listen to the rules very carefully if you want to pull that off. And just the deadpan way in which she says it, like the fact that she just like has shock collars for some of these people that she just uses so like cavalierly. Everything about this movie worked for me. It surprised me in ways that I didn't even think a Saw movie would at this point. This is the 10th movie in a franchise that historically has never had a fresh score from critics on Rotten Tomatoes. And this one rightfully does. It's not just one of the best horror movies of the year. It's one of the best movies of the year. I got genuinely emotional, and I'm not even kidding when I say Tobin Bell deserves Oscar recognition for this movie. He had me tearing up so many different times. Like, yeah, dude. Saw X. Might be recency bias because I literally watched it for the first time like 3 days ago. One of my favorite movies of the year. I absolutely adored it.
Yeah, this was my number 7. Like I said, my 7 to 1 are all 4 stars or higher. And Saw X is no different. I talked about it right around when this movie was come out. I rewatched the first 7 movies in the series, the original 7. And
have you seen Spiral yet?
I still haven't watched Spiral. No,
I tried to rewatch it.
I'll eventually watch it. I don't know.
I tried to rewatch it like a few months ago, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't as good as I remember it being in theaters.
I mean, I'll watch it. I'll try to watch it instead of doing the entire series. I'll watch that again before Saw 11 comes out this year. Yeah, Saw X. So Saw X, I had zero expectations going into this, even though I've heard great things. I saw your review because you watched it right before I did, and I was still like, it's a Saw.
And I mean, I didn't shut up about it in the group chat at all.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm like, it's a Saw movie though. Like I heard that before Jigsaw of like, oh my god, we're back because Tobin Bell's in this one. And I watched that one and I'm like, that's the worst Saw movie. What are you people talking about? Just because he's in it doesn't make it great. Here, though, what they do, and here's the thing that stood out to me the most. This isn't a Saw movie.
Yeah.
It is a John Kramer movie.
It somehow goes back to basics and reinvents the franchise.
Yes. It does. Yeah, it doesn't even feel like, I don't even think it feels like back to basics. This feels like a different, like an Elseworld story of like, but what if John Kramer, even though they preach it in all the other movies, he's not killing people and he's not a bad guy. It's like, no, he's a bad guy and all those people are dead because of him. This one frames it the way those movies think they were framing it. Of like, no, he's doing this for the right reasons. As effed up as they are, they're for the right reasons. And the character study that goes on, especially in like the first 30 minutes of it. So Kayla watched it with me. She hates this series. She cannot, when we watched the first 7 movies, she would go do anything else but watch.
Yeah.
She's like, I want to watch this one just to see, and if I don't like it, I'll leave. She was 30 minutes in. She's like, I hope John Kramer, I hope he makes it through this one.
Yeah.
And I hope he stays, like, I hope they don't kill him. And I'm like, okay, you're good because this takes place between the first and second movies. You're fine. But also,
although it does make you, it kind of makes you wonder though at some point. And the thing is this franchise has gotten crazy enough to where like, if they would have killed John Kramer in this and just been like, well, we're retconning, like it wouldn't have surprised me. It wouldn't have surprised me.
It wouldn't have surprised me either because it already feels like a retcon of like, we're just going to start over with this series. That's what this movie feels like. And it does such a great job of almost resetting the timeline of no other horror franchise sticks to their timeline as crazy and weird and convoluted as it is. Saw sticks to that timeline of John Kramer died at the end of that 3rd movie and everything that happens in the timeline past then, he's dead. There's nothing we can do about it because we wrote ourselves into a corner in 2005 or whatever, 2006, whatever year that came out. The traps are really good in this. My favorite trap is one that's not a real trap in the movie, though.
I know, it's so good.
It's the one that's on a poster. No spoilers, but like, I want to talk about this scene because it's my favorite scene in the movie. John Kramer is in the hospital. He daydreams about this janitor who's stealing like a Rolex watch and a wallet and
from a dying patient,
a ring from a dying patient who's like comatose right there. And John Kramer daydreams about putting him in a saw trap that sucks his eyeballs out. I'm like, what kind of weirdo daydreams of that? I'm like, that's incredible. I love it so much.
And his little like line when the guy puts the watch back and like the guy like looks up and sees him watching, so he puts the watch back and he like exits the room and like Tobin Bell like stops him and he goes, "That was a good choice."
Mhm.
I just oh
Yeah.
god. And uh, honestly, what I liked about the traps were they were like rudimentary, like they definitely felt like they took the time period it was in where it's like he's still kind of learning how to be Jigsaw, but like they were visceral in a way that like and kind of real in a way that Saw
Mhm.
traps haven't been in a while. Like the pipe bombs that are stuck into the arms that he has to like cut out himself. Like I'm like, oh god, that's awful. The
Or like,
leg one, the leg.
oh, with
Ugh.
the saw, yeah.
Yeah, and then how like the like dismemberment at the end of that was so visceral and shocking in a way that I was just like, holy shit, how did they do that? There's a whole like making of documentary that I watched where they
But then
spend a
there's a
good chunk of time talking about that kill alone, and it's so cool.
what I love is there's a really goofy part right after it though. After that,
The
where
intestine rope.
where they use the intestines as rope, and I'm like, this is what are we doing? This is hilarious. Like this is fun, like
And
funny in a way.
the character even does like a little ta-da thing at the end after
Mhm.
she uses it. It's so funny.
It's so funny.
Oh
'Cause
god.
you're like, "We're not going there, right? Like, that's we're not doing this," and they do, and it's like, "Oh, oh, okay."
uh
The final, like, "Hello, Zep" needle drop is so much
oh,
fun. It's
I
perfect for this
screamed,
movie.
dude. I
It's perfect for
screamed.
this movie, yeah. The it's like a like, literally walking into the sunset ending where it feels like it's so cheesy, but it's, like, the perfect amount of cheese for this franchise.
Oh my god, it really is. I I adore this movie. Full disclosure, up until yesterday, it was my number 1, and then I switched it just because I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna ride hard for my number 1, like, what I will reveal as my number 1,
Yeah.
just because, like, that movie is just a miracle, and I love it, but Saw X is just I haven't been that giddy on a movie, and I don't even know how long. Like, it checked all my boxes. It made the 12-year-old budding horror fan within me so fucking happy. So,
It's the best Saw movie. I haven't said that
it
yet.
is.
It's the best Saw
Absolutely.
movie, hands down.
Yep.
All right, let's get to our number ones then. We'll go through our list. We'll read our 10 to 1 when we reveal our number one. So my list is going to be as followed. Number 10, Subspecies 5. Number 9, Pet Cemetery Bloodlines. Number 8, Thanksgiving. Number 7, Saw X. Number 6, Cobweb. Number 5, Infinity Pool. Number 4, Insidious the Red Door. Number 3, Scream. 6, number 2, Evil Dead Rise, and my number 1, not just horror movie, but movie in general of 2023, Godzilla minus 1.
Hell yeah, dude.
I love this movie so much. It is incredible. It's a movie I haven't felt this way about a single movie in a very long time. The last thing I can equate this to is when I watched Mad Max Fury Road in the theater of
Mm.
like, oh my god, that's what we can do with movies.
Like, this is
And that's what
why we go to the theater. Yeah.
this is why we go to the theater. This is why I love movies. This is why I love genre because you can't tell this story any other way. And that's what
Yeah.
Mad Max did for me almost 10 years ago now. Jeez. And Godzilla minus 1 did the same for me of I had heard great things going in, but I was kind of like expecting like, oh, this is going to be a really fun kaiju Toho Studios Godzilla movie and was not expecting to be just blown away by how emotional this movie is, how efficient this movie is because you're thrown into this world right away. You even the characters are thrown into their own world kind of in this movie because you could set up you're in World War II You're at the tail end of it. The main character is a kamikaze pilot from Japan who wants anything but to be that. He does not
Yep.
believe in that. He fears it. He wants any way out of it as possible. So what he ends up doing is faking that there's something wrong with his airplane, and ends up on this island and has to lie to everyone on the island, all the other Japanese soldiers, that something's wrong with the airplane. That's why I'm not fulfilling my mission of just killing myself by flying into anything, any US ship or plane or anything. But it's revealed like right away of like, there's a legend on this island and it's Godzilla, and there he is. There's baby Godzilla, and just destroys this base camp for them. And that's what I love. Yep. That's like the first efficiency in this movie of, we don't need to go through the origins of Godzilla. We know the origins of it. We're just going to explain away that the characters do too, because why are we going to take all this time to explain the origins of Godzilla? We know what happened. And immediately just throws us right into that world. It's a harrowing opening to this movie, and it just keeps that tone throughout the rest of it. Even again with efficiency, they introduce new characters kind of at a rapid pace in this movie, and you fall in love with all of them so quick. Yeah, because you get introduced to, our kamikaze pilot ends up going back home and kind of ends up in this, like, I don't know how to describe it, like this relationship with this woman that he's not trying to have a relationship with, and has to care for this child that is neither hers nor his.
Yeah, and like they find it in the wreckage.
And they become this family, not because of they were seeking it. It's just because not out of necessity either. It was, we found each other in this time of hardship. We needed each other at this point in time. And as they grow together as a family, they begin to love each other in a way that wasn't present when they first met.
Yeah.
And that emotional connection that you have with him, the daughter, the female lead, it's so connected by the end of this movie that when the reveal happens of the fate of a certain character, it leaves you emotionally happy and satisfied, and then kicks you right in the nuts right after.
Yeah,
so great. Godzilla is terrifying in this movie. It's not like, go destroy the city, Godzilla. It's like, no, stay away because people I like are there.
Yeah. And it's not, I mean, if you've listened to this podcast, you know how aquatic horror is one of my like aquatic horror gets me. It's one of my big phobias. It's one of my favorite genres just because it genuinely scares me. And so much of this movie takes place on the open water, and it is terrifying. There's a wooden boat sequence where they are just trying to essentially distract Godzilla until more reinforcements arrive. And it is like, it's probably the most nerve induced, like it's the most I have gripped my armrests in a theater this entire year. It's just, it's intense. It's so terrifying. Yeah. Everything you said, this movie is incredible. I mean, we're seeing it at the State again this weekend.
Yeah, like, we're gonna go watch it again at the State Theater, and I'm so excited because I watched it like opening weekend when it played in the Cinemark here, and it did it justice, and it was incredible, and I cannot wait to watch it in the State with that sound system for this movie, and to hear Godzilla's roar in this, to hear the original Godzilla theme. I am so excited to watch it again because it is like I said, it's my favorite movie of the year. I think it's the best movie of the year. I think it should get some sort of recognition at the bullshit awards that come out. It's not going to. It 100% should, because it is the best movie of the year. It is emotionally resonant. It is about the hardships of war, about like Godzilla itself is like a metaphor for war, and especially World War II, of like the nuclear bombs really didn't, they don't say the nuclear bombs went off here,
Yeah.
Instead, you get Godzilla.
Yeah. It's so, oh God. I'm not a fan of war movies. I don't like war movies. And it's funny because I have literally 2 of them in my top 10. But I love war movies when they are mixed with genre film. And I don't know why that is, but like this movie just it's a war story first and foremost, and a Godzilla movie second. Like you could take Godzilla out of this movie entirely and it would still be one of the best movies of the year. Godzilla is literally just the cherry on top, the giant destructive cherry on top. It's so, I just love it. Yeah. This movie's incredible. Like I said, my top 4 are so interchangeable. This at one point was my number 1 too. Like it's a revolving door. I loved this movie. I'm so excited to see it again. Yeah, it's the best Godzilla movie that I've seen so far. But I have been watching the Godzilla channel on Pluto recently, so I've actually watched quite a bit of those.
Yeah, from what I've watched and from what I've heard from other Godzilla fans too, they're like, yeah, this is the best one. The rest are all kind of goofy.
Yeah, the original's really good. The sequels get goofy. Son of Godzilla is really fun, but it is like it's like I was watching Son of Godzilla with Maria on Pluto TV. Like we just had the Godzilla channel on in the background this week, and like I was like, this is so tonally different from Godzilla -1. It's like it's insane to me that not only is this in the same franchise, but like Toho like did both of these movies. So yeah, Godzilla -1 rules.
It does. All right, Sam, what is your number 1 horror flick of 20?
All right. Well, my number 10 was The Blackening, number 9, Thanksgiving, number 8, Pope's Exorcist, number 7, Candyland, 6, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, 5, Unicorn Wars, 4, Evil Dead Rise, 3, Godzilla -1, 2, Saw X. And because I will always find small, tiny, indie budget movies that somehow knock it out of the park for me more impressive than big blockbuster budgets, Suitable Flesh, the latest from Joe Lynch, is my number 1, starring Judah Lewis, Heather Graham, Barbara Crampton, Bruce Davison. This is an H.P. Lovecraft story that was written by Dennis Paoli. Originally was supposed to be adapted by Stuart Gordon, and obviously Stuart Gordon is no longer with us. So Joe Lynch took the reins. Barbara Crampton's a producer on this as well as acting in it. The brilliant thing about Suitable Flesh, and I have recently read the story that the H.P. Lovecraft story that this is based on. The story is dry as hell, dude. It's just about 2 academic guys that want to bone the same woman, and it's body swapping and whatever. This movie,
right?
Yeah, like it's H.P. Lovecraft. The dude's a misogynist. He's a racist. Like we could go into that. Whatever. He writes good stuff. Like he wrote cosmic horror better than anyone else. He kind of redefined the genre. Shitty person. Whatever. What the brilliant thing that Lynch does with Suitable Flesh is he worked with Paoli and his producing and writing partner. To flip the script and make it about 2 female colleagues and a young troubled man with obviously an otherworldly being messing with him, at least at the start of this movie. This is such a weird movie to put at number 1, but I just loved it. I know I've said this about a lot of these movies, but that's kind of what I was looking for this year. We're just movies that were different, movies that I didn't see anyone else doing anything like it. And I haven't seen anything like Suitable Flesh this year. Heather Graham plays a psychiatrist who is visited by Judah Lewis one time is visited in her office by Judah Lewis, who is talking about his father. There's a little bit of hints of abuse. And halfway through this conversation, his entire demeanor changes. He like has what she considers a seizure, and it's like he's a different person. He's a little more sexually aggressive and just like very God, I don't even know. He literally grabs her.
It literally
at
becomes a
one
different
point.
person.
Yeah, he does. He literally becomes a different person. But she can't stop thinking about this. Well, throughout her kind of trying to figure out how to help this patient, she ends up body swapping with him and finding out that there is a whole otherworldly nether region Cthulhu type of bullshit going on with this. And unfortunately has no power to really stop it. No one will believe her. Barbara Crampton, her colleague and friend at Miskatonic College. So many like Easter eggs to Stuart Gordon's earlier Lovecraft work. It's her just essentially trying to unravel this mystery and stop it before this thing overtakes her body completely. There's some like it's a slow burn. I know our buddy Blake, he didn't even like, I don't think he finished it because he was like, I was just kind of waiting for the horror to start. And I get that because it's a little bit of a slow burn. But to me, the last like half hour of this movie is insanity. Like there's a disgusting gore gag where like there's a body that has just been obliterated beyond what you would expect anybody to live through. And it's still somehow alive. There's a sequence involving a backup camera that is actually like an in-camera effect. They did that. That is not a composite shot. I have no clue how they did it. It is the most impressive horror shot, I think, of the entire year. And it was made on a movie with a shoestring budget. Like, Suitable Flesh to me is just like the epitome of indie horror filmmaking. And I've listened to a bunch of interviews with Joe Lynch. This movie was released during the writer and actors strike. He was the only one that was able to do press for it, and he busted his ass doing press for it. And I lapped it all up. To me, like Suitable Flesh is just, it made me excited to make movies watching it. I was like, this is something that's like, it's such a cool movie on a level that is attainable for like a small filmmaker to achieve, but I don't know how they achieved exactly what they did. And to me, that's just fascinating. I think all the performances in this are great. Jonathan Sketch is in this as like Heather Graham's like very attractive, big, bulky, muscular husband, who's essentially playing what the housewife would in any other kind of adaptation. Like he's cooking and he's looking for a new job, and like, and
He drops his shirt before anyone else does.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like he shows the most skin in this entire movie, I think. There's this great sequence where like a person I mean, it's in the trailer. Like Judah Lewis literally beheads Bruce Davison as this house is going up in flames, and there's just this killer shot of all this fire going around him while he's holding up this head, and the head's still blinking, and it's just like there's insane shit in this movie. And I'm a Lovecraft person. I'm a Gordon person. I love this kind of thing. And this to me just, Stuart Gordon would have been so fucking proud of Joe Lynch had he seen this movie. And I don't know. I loved it. It's not a perfect movie. It's, it's got its warts, it's got its flaws, but like the feeling that I get when I watch this movie is so, I don't know. It makes me happy. It's weirdly enough, it's my comfort movie this year. And I've gone back to it so much. I have watched that backup camera scene. I don't even know how many times. I'm just like, how did he do it? I can't wait. The Blu-ray's coming out later this month. It's hitting Shudder later this month. I will be picking up the Blu-ray because I am pretty sure, I mean, Joe Lynch tweeted me when I asked him, and he said there would be a director's commentary on it. and I got to hear it. I love this movie. I need to know everything about it. It was kind of my obsession the second half of this year. So it's my number one. It's an unorthodox choice, but I implore everyone to go watch Suitable Flesh. I literally think it hits Shudder in like a week or two. So if you have a Shudder subscription, check it out. It's phenomenal. I love it. So, but mileage may vary. So yeah,
that was our top 10 horror movies 2023. Lists that only you and I could make. That is
yes,
for sure. These, you give these to anyone who's ever listened to our show and tell them to let us know who wrote each list. They'd be able to easily pick it out or guess what was on it even before we did. Let's give a few honorable mentions on this before we go. We're already 2.5 hours into it.
We are. That's okay. Everybody's year-end podcast is long.
Yeah. So honorable mentions, I'll throw mine out really quick. Suitable Flesh was one of mine. I was debating literally before I typed Pet Sematary Bloodlines to put it at number 9. That's how close it was to making mine. I knew it was going to be on yours, so I was like,
just not a number 1.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be like top 3 for sure.
Yeah.
It was hovering around my bottom of my top 10. Knock at the Cabin is also an honorable mention. I don't know if I'd call it like straight up horror, more of a thriller than anything.
Yeah, but it's
definitely has a lot of horror elements.
Yeah.
I had a ton
Talk
of fun
about
with that.
best performances of the year. Batista in that is just
the man. Meg 2, I think, was one of the most fun times I had watching a movie in the theater. I gave it 4 stars. It's not a 4-star movie. It is.
I think I gave it 5.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun. Demonic Toys Jack Attack, one of my favorite full moon movies of the year. This one is on a lot of people's top 10 lists. I liked it, didn't love it. No One Will Save You. That's on Hulu right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I liked it, didn't love it.
You don't love it. The last one, and I should have brought this up in my honorable, or not honorable mentions, my Doobie Doing, but I was like, I don't know if it's going to make my top 10 or not. It's so close. I think it's the scariest movie of the year, and I probably should have included it because it's the scariest movie of the year. That is Hell House LLC Origins, The Carmichael Manor, the 4th film in the Hell House series. Finally watched it, loved it. I think it's right on the level of the first movie in terms of, oh my God, this is scary. It's pretty thin on like characters and plot, but I don't go to watch a Hell House movie for characters and plot. I go for them to maybe over-explain and tell too much about the history of wherever they're at. But the vibe, the way they shoot these movies is 100% my jam. It's mockumentary meets found footage meets like sort of real document. There's so many different types of genres mixed into one. This movie's terrifying. If you hate clowns like I do, you're going to hate this movie because it's terrifying and it has so many clown jump scares, and they're all kind of perfect in this movie.
Nice.
So that's my honorable mentions. And then I'll throw out, once you're done, the ones I didn't watch yet.
Okay. As far as honorable mentions, I had Scream 6 and Insidious the Red Door in both of mine. Dark Harvest, another David Slade movie. Really good. Kind of, I love the vibes of this. And the first 2/3 of it I really like. I think it loses the thread a little bit in the last act, but it's very good, dripping with Halloween vibes. Definitely recommend that. Slaughterhouse, way better than I expected it to be. I just really liked it. It's like Mean Girls meets Animal Attack slasher, and I was just kind of like, yeah, this kind of rules. I recently watched When Evil Lurks, which has been topping a lot of people's top 10 lists. It almost made mine. It is brutal, dude. Like it's definitely a different type of possession film. Definitely recommend it. It's solid.
I almost ended up watching that instead of the new Hell House, but
talk about trends in horror this year. Like horror was not afraid to mess up kids, and When Evil Lurks is like one of those movies. Yeah. As far as like there's like a trio of slashers. Totally Killer from Amazon Prime I really liked. It's a time travel like Back to the Future slasher. I really liked It's a Wonderful Knife. And then the COVID slasher Sick that
Yep.
just hit Peacock this year has a chase in the second. I mean, the second act is basically one long chase scene that's just nerve shredding. Absolutely loved that one. Surprisingly, loved Disney's new Haunted Mansion. Really thought that was solid. And then an indie flick from Shudder, Birth Rebirth, which is kind of a more feminine, motherly twist on the Frankenstein mythos. Gut punch of an ending. If you're really not great around like stuff involving childbirth and like miscarriage kind of things, especially, I'd stay away from it. But man, what a two knockout lead performances. Hell of a directorial debut from Laura Moss. Can't wait to see what she does next. So definitely wanted to give that one a shout out. But those are kind of my honorable mentions. Love the Meg 2. Love the Nun 2. But those were just like fun popcorn horror. And I like the Pope's Exorcist as far as fun popcorn horror, just a little bit more. So
yeah, my stuff I haven't watched. You said most of them there. The only other ones, I haven't watched Dark Harvest. I haven't watched Haunted Mansion yet. I haven't watched Beau is Afraid. I was still looking forward to that. I've heard it's like an anxiety for
I know
for 2.5, 3 hours. That doesn't sound fun though, but I love Ari Aster.
Yes.
Satanic Hispanics is on my watch list. I need to get that watched soon. Sick was on there as well, The Blackening. And then the last one, I think you watched this one, the Pale Blue Eye, the Netflix movie with Christian Bale.
I did not. So
it's making some top 10 lists. So I do want to see it. I still want to see it, but I don't have Netflix anymore, so I don't know if I'm ever going to get that watched.
My issue with that movie is legitimately the last like 5 minutes throw in a twist that just ruins the rest of the movie for me. I just did not care for the ending of that one, but leading up to it, that movie's pretty friggin' great. Like if the ending hadn't rubbed me the wrong way, it very well could have been on my top 10 list this year. So Harry Melling's incredible as Poe in that movie. But
all right, so that's our best of 2023 episode, over 2.5 hours long. But hey, we had almost 20 movies to talk about just in our top 10 list alone. People out there listening, please leave us a comment wherever you can drop a comment. Drop us your top 10 list, or yell at us on why we're crazy for including the Pope's Exorcist and Pet Sematary Bloodlines in our own top 10 list.
At least we played those low.
Hey, well, that's true. Sam, where can people listen to this podcast if they want to check us out on one of their apps on their phones?
Well, you can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, pretty much wherever you get podcasts. Like we said, we're putting out episodes weekly. So every Friday, check your feed. There'll be one popping up. If you want to see more of us on like social media and stuff, we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, which I haven't done super well in the last 2 weeks about TikToks, but I have a few that I am working on. Mm-hmm. So we're
maybe by the time after this drops, we should do each of our own top 10 lists as a TikTok.
Yeah, it would be kind of fun to do that. Actually, we should. So check us out on TikTok. I don't know. Let us know what kind of stuff you want us to post there, because I don't know. I'm kind of having fun playing around with it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got some cool stuff that we want to do on that. Last but not least, you can check out our merch on tpublic.com. Just simply search Screams from the Basement. You'll find us there. Or
new design incoming in the next couple of weeks.
Ooh, new 2024 design coming soon. Be on the lookout for that. A couple sale dates are coming out here in January, so be on the lookout for those. We'll share those out on our social medias whenever the sale dates actually drop. You can get 35% off our merch, which is a pretty damn good deal. Speaking of pretty damn good deals, last but not least, you can check out our Fangoria affiliate link at shop.fangoria.com. Fangoria.com/Screens from the Basement. Use our discount code Screens from the Basement to save on your order. That includes subscriptions where you can get cool covers.
Yeah.
Like today's issue that I just got in the mail. You can use it. Save yourself some money on that. And you can use it on all their merchandise as well. Just use our affiliate link and our discount code. You will be helping the podcast by doing so. And on all those places that Sam listed off online, please leave us a rating and review. We want to hear what you think of the show. Even if it's awful, even if you think we're the worst, give us a 5-star rating and tell us why we're the worst.
Yeah, I was about to say, rate us 5 stars, and then you can tell us whatever you want.
Yeah, you can tell us whatever you want. We don't care. Just give us that 5-star first, and then you can call us whatever names you want.
You can rave about, or you can rant about me putting Suitable Flesh at number 1. I don't know why you would. That movie's a masterpiece, but...
Last thing we got, next episode that just Sam and I will be on, we're going to preview 2024's movies coming out.
Yeah.
We just closed out the year. We did our best of 2023. We're going to look forward to the future. What does 2024 have in store? What horror movies do we have to look forward to? We are going to be tier ranking in terms of our excitement the 2024 releases that we know of that are going to be coming out. Who knows if any of those will make our top 10 list next year.
So many of the ones that we talked about at the beginning of this year didn't even make our top 10. I don't think these years or right now.
No, like looking at my list, I think maybe we have 2.
Yeah.
Evil Dead and Scream are in mine. That might be the only ones we were excited for. Yeah. Who knows what'll happen by the end of 2024?
I'm so excited for Megan.
Well, you have now Megan 2 to look forward to.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap this thing up. Sam, do you have any other final words as we wrap up our first episode of 2024?
I don't know. Just thanks for being with us for the first year. This has been fun. We hope you keep listening and enjoying. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And sweet screams.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.